एकदम ठीक है. Professor Chen, could you just scroll this to the lower bar, and there you see a mic, the mic icon.
Yeah, he is joining.
You just
welcome, Yishin. Thank you, you're there. Okay, Advocate Siraj Qureshi has just joined. So only few.
Yeah, hello, namaskar.
नमस्कार.
नमस्कार जी. जी गौतम जी ठीक है, आप ठीक हैं?
बहुत ठीक, बहुत अच्छा. Welcome to Mr. Thank you. Would you turn your mic to it? Yes. How are you?
Hello, Bapak. Hi, I'm fine. I'm good.
Apa kabar?
Baik, baik, Bapak. Baik sekali.
Terima kasih. Pak, kalian tidak join.
गौतम जी नमस्कार, मैं नीलेश बोल रहा हूँ. मेरी आवाज आ रही है?
जी नीलेश की आपकी आवाज आ रही है.
जी भाई साहब को कितने बजे तक ज्वाइन कराना है? मानिए
3 मिनट के बाद सर.
3 मिनट बाद. ठीक है जी. 3 मिनट बाद भाई साहब रहेंगे. आप कार्यक्रम शुरू कर दीजिए. भाई साहब मैक्सिमम 5 बजे तक आपके साथ रहना है, क्योंकि उसके बाद उनका अगला कार्यक्रम.
तो मैं करेंगे.
हाँ जी, उसके बाद अगला कार्यक्रम यही करना है, इसी सिस्टम पे करना है. जी कर दूंगा. 3 मिनट बाद मैं भाई साहब खिला दूंगा.
ठीक है. सर ने तो कहा था 5:30 बजे तक रहेंगे. जी सर ने कहा था 5:30 बजे तक रहेंगे.
उनका एक कार्यक्रम है, लाइव है, वो भी 5:30
जी जी.
इसलिए ये है कि आपको 5 तक हमको छोड़ना पड़ जाएगा.
कम हो गए हैं तो हम लोग उसको बाद में करते हैं.
हाँ गौतम जी
नमस्कार सर, प्रणाम सर।
नमस्कार।
ठीक है।
आप सभी को मेरा बहुत बहुत प्रणाम।
ना संभवी सर आ गए हैं, ना यू कैन स्टार्ट।
ये पीने के लिए
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Shambhavi and I am a student of Bhasha Indonesia in Jawaharlal Nehru University. It is my pleasure to welcome you here this evening. I would like to welcome and thank all of you for joining us today for the international webinar on Chinese imperialism and expansionism in 21st century, an issue that is becoming more and more critical day by day. It is our privilege to have such prominent keynote speakers like Shri Indreshi and many other scholars across the world. On behalf of the Indic side, I would like to extend a very warm welcome to special guests, Mr. Govinji from Bharat Tibet Sahyog Manch and other prominent professors from different universities. We have Professor Girish Nath Jha and Professor Madhav Govind from JNE, Dr. Mamta Tripathi, Dr. Bhuvan Jha from Delhi University. We also have Akash Vajpayee and Dr. Sheetal Sharma.
तो मोहन खान कब आ रहा है?
Webinar.
सर जब आप बोल दें हेलो।
We hope you'll find the program we have lined up for you to be fruitful and engaging.
वो घर ही बैठे
You are requested to please put yourself on mute and kindly do not share your screen. Only the speaker will have their mics on while speaking. Also, it is a matter of immense pleasure to inform you all that we are streaming the program live on official YouTube channel and Facebook page of Indic Belt Society. We will set the ball rolling with lightning of lamp. Light and brightness must always be with to start us off on the we will now have the lamp lighting ceremony. And ladies and gentlemen, to do the honors, may I please request founder of the Indic Society, Mr. Gautam Kumar Jha, to light the auspicious lamp at his home. The lamp is now lit, and thank you so much for doing the honor. Moving along, I would like to call upon Mr. David Pradhan, who is a senior research fellow and doctoral candidate at the School of International Studies, Jawaharlal Nehru University, to give us a brief introduction of Bharat Tibet Sahyog Manch and our very own Indic Belt Society.
Thank you, Shambhavi. Good afternoon, all present dignitaries. Bharat Tibet Sahyog Manch is a cooperation forum which, apart from being a cultural and academic platform for researchers on ancient historical and fraternal links between Indian and Tibetan civilizations, also supports the right to political self-determination of the people of Tibet. It is involved in philanthropic and social mobilization for preservation of Tibetan heritage and promotes the Tibetan cause, peace and security on the northern borders of India and abroad. It has a strong following in India and is mentored by Shri Indresh Ji, our keynote speaker today. The Bharat Tibet Sahyog Manch has formed an effective alliance between Indian nationalism and Tibetan nationalism in the spirit of universal brotherhood. The Indic Belt Society India is a JNU-centered organization of scholars, diplomats, academics, and policy planners which promotes and supports research into the historical cultural values and symbiotic social synergy between modern political states, which, though divided by the vagaries of post-colonial boundaries and conflicts, are socioculturally united by the inherent ethos of Indic values that inform their collective consciences. There are Indic Belt societies in different countries in South and Southeast Asia, and the Indic Belt Society India cooperates with them for concerted multidisciplinary and transdisciplinary research into subjects like culture, diaspora, history, politics, sociology, scientific and technological cooperation, military strategy, and contemporary foreign policy for promotion of peace and amity between the nations of the world, informed by its motto of Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. Thank you. Over to you, Sambhavi.
Thank you, Mr. Mo. I would love Mr. Ratan, who has obtained his master's degree in modern history from Historical Studies, Jawaharlal Nehru University, and is currently working as senior research assistant at the management section of Nehru Memorial Museum and Library. To brief the House about the chair.
Thank you, Shambhavi.
Just I request the audience, please do not present or share anything from your mobile phone. Please, thank you. Just come back.
Thank you, Shambhavi. Before, very good afternoon to you, all of you. And before we begin this program, like I have given the duty to introduce today's keynote speaker, Shri Indresh Kumar Ji, and the chair of this webinar, Dr. Gautam Kumar Jha. So let me begin first by introducing to all our audience the life and career of Shri Indresh Kumar Ji. Respected Shri Indresh Kumar Ji, National Executive Member of the Rashtriya Swayamsevak Sangh. He is the mentor of Muslim Rashtriya Manch and the founder of Bharat Tibet Sahyog Manch. Born on 19 February 1949 at Kaithal, Haryana, he did his mechanical engineering from Punjab Engineering College, Chandigarh. After completing his education, he joined the Rashtriya Swayamsevak Sangh in 1970 and as a full-time pracharak for the organization. During his long association with the Rashtriya Swayamsevak Sangh, he was given various responsibilities. He participated in various activities related to youth, young people in Delhi, Jammu and Kashmir. Pramukh, he was the Sahasampark Pramukh of the Andhra Pradesh, Akhil Bharatiya Karyakarini Sadasya Kendra, as well as associate founder of other organizations like Simanta Jana Kalyan Sanstha, Hindu Jagran Manch, and Purva Sainik Seva Parishad. Shri Indresh Kumar Ji has been forefront in various political and social activities. When emergency was imposed in India on June 1975, he went underground and organized agitations and movements as well as circulated underground literature against emergency rule. He played an important part in organizing relief work for the flood-affected people of Delhi in 1979. And he is a great supporter for the cause of Tibetan independence. And therefore, he founded the Bharat Tibet Sahyog Manch in 1999 for fostering national unity and harmony. From that, he has been a leading personality in promoting good neighborly ties between India and its neighbors. For accomplishing that good purpose, he has founded organizations like Nepal Sanskritik Parishad, Bharat Bangla Maitri Parishad, and he also, from time to time, has been active in promoting various environmental causes like cleaning of the Ganga river and planting of trees on various festivals. Thank you. Now, let me give a brief introduction to the chair of this webinar, Dr. Gautam Kumar Jha, who has been the main mind and brain behind hosting this webinar. Dr. Gautam Kumar Jha is Assistant Professor of Bahasa Indonesian Language at the Center for Chinese and Southeast Asian Studies, School of Language, Literature and Cultural Studies in JNU. Under his guidance, we have founded the Indic Belt Society, and his areas of interest are Indonesian government, society and politics, Southeast Asian affairs, and Bahasa Indonesian language. As an expert on Indonesian affairs, he has traveled extensively in Indonesia and has given lectures at prestigious Indonesian universities, as well as participated in various national and international seminars. He has been instrumental in introducing Indonesian cultural shows like the Balinese Shadow Puppet Show among Indian audience and establishing educational cooperation between various Indonesian universities and JNU, which has been beneficial for students and scholars in both the countries. Dr. Jha has contributed numerous books and research articles in various journals published in both India and Indonesia. His latest, he has translated the famous Indian folktale Singhasan Battisi from Sanskrit into Indonesian, and his latest books published last year in 2019 are A New Imperial China, The Hague Ruling and the South China Sea Dispute, which has been jointly written with Dr. Somojit Ray, and Prathamik Bahasa Indonesia, Basic Bahasa Indonesian for Indian and Indian readers and learners of Bahasa Indonesian. Apart from being a versatile scholar, Dr. Jha is a lover of good food and classical music, and he loves to play tabla in his spare time. Over to you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, Brahma, for giving my long introduction. Good evening, everyone. Respected Shri Indresh Ji, our colleagues, students, scholars from Taiwan, Indonesia, Malaysia, Tibet in exile, and Hong Kong. This gives me a great pleasure to welcome you for this international webinar. In fact, just 2 weeks back, we had organized an international webinar on China, past, present, and future. And after the success of that seminar and also got so many responses from the audience side, I have proposed a similar webinar to Shri Indresh Ji, where we could involve relevant international scholars. And Shri Indresh Ji readily agreed to guide us further. And the concept of this webinar evolved as Chinese imperialism and expansionism in the 21st century. And we connected with the relevant scholars in the area. And thankfully, we have Honorable Professor Ying Huai Chen from Asia University of Taiwan, Mr. Rene Pati Rajawane, and Mr. Sukma Sushanti from Indonesia, Dr. Rahul Mishra, Mr. D. Balakrishnan, and Ms. Li Shiying from Malaysia, Mr. Pema Junai, Honorable Speaker of the Parliament of Tibet in Exile, Professor Ajay Dubey, and Dr. Somajit Ray, and Advocate Shiraj Qureshi Ji, and Dr. Abhishek Tandon from India, who will make the discourse vibrant. Now, since I have to give introduction of this webinar, let me keep my views in brief, and then I would request our respected keynote speaker, Shri Indresh Ji, to elucidate the centrality of this webinar. While the United Nations has completed 75 years of its existence, its achievements have been a mixed success. Its 5 organs achieved certain milestones in the respective fields, but at the same time, it saw many aspirations of the UN Security Council permanent member countries getting realized. There have been situations where these veto-powered nations did not respect the verdict of the International Court of Justice and made mockery of their own organization, for which they acted as superlative leader. Therefore, the universal objective of justice and peace has been halfway realized. The global order is still based upon hegemony and domination. Earlier, the world was dominated between 2 superpowers, the former Soviet Union and the US. Now there is great trust among the powers in order to dominate the world. This fierce competition has made a domino impact, as even after the end of the Cold War, the smaller states are still struggling to align with the bigger power in order to secure its sovereign status. Imperialism and expansionism still exist in many forms in the international arena, like trade blocs, illegitimate access, and exploitation of maritime resources. Building power structures for the future possible war, manufacturing cheaper goods, and dumping the same in the developing countries, despite these countries have substantial workforce to manufacture the same commodities. My friends, these such tactics and its practical aspirations are often realized by bigger powers by funding the various governments in order to incline their foreign policy towards itself, creating animosities among the neighboring countries, funding and managing the facilities of other countries having long-term sinister motives. In such a scenario, the concept of non-aligned movement seemed to be very relevant, which rose against the concept of power blocks by drawing on the principle agreed at the Bandung Conference. The purpose of this organization was very clear: sovereignty, territorial integrity, and security of non-aligned countries in their struggle against imperialism, colonialism, racism, and all forms of foreign aggression. Occupation, domination, interference, or hegemony, as well as against great power and bloc politics. Thus, from the beginning, our leaders foresaw the possible dangers of aligning with the bigger power folks. The current situation is very clear, where the world is demanding more multilateralism because the majority of the members of NAM are either left or right, as the NAM could not rope itself tightly. India started looking towards the west as China attacked it in 1962. Indonesia started looking at the USA to balance the strong influence coming from China or communist bloc. The best example which elucidates above statements is the rise of an assertive China. And this rise has not been a conflict-free rise. Several sovereign states in the vicinity or in the neighborhood have been experiencing the pressure of its imperialistic, aggressive and belligerent attitude, especially towards the countries touching the South China Sea, Mongolia, Bhutan, Nepal, and India. It has already usurped Tibet and Xinjiang. Chinese imperialistic and expansionist attitude is reflected in the form of illegitimate access to the exclusive economic zone and building structures in the common water of several countries. However, things have changed. A smaller country is visibly more powerful than what they were during the ancient period or colonial period. But they are still reeling under the new imperialistic attitude carried out by bigger power in the name of development or aid. The UN has expanded with its member from 50 to 192. In such a scenario, we need a stronger United Nations based upon the inclusivity and multilateralism, which would emphasize upon human rights, democratic values, and other issues facing the world. As the whole world is reeling under fear, stress, death, and possible long period of lockdown, China has intensified its belligerence, overshadowing the value of humanity by indulging in fierce aggression in the South China Sea, as well as brutally killing Indian forces at Indo-Tibetan border. This clearly demands revamping and strengthening of United Nations in order to isolate such belligerence and create a fear and aggression-free global order. Add further on this concept, as I told you before, I request our keynote speaker, Shri Indresh to pave the way for this webinar by elucidating the centrality of this theme. I request Shri Indresh to kindly take over. Thank you.
The audience present in this Tarang Goshti webinar, it is a 2 days webinar which has a most relevance with the today. I will speak in this seminar, in webinar, in English and in Hindi both. The 2 days era, it is dominated by the Chinese different shapes. पूरा विश्व कोरोना महामारी से जूझ रहा है। कोरोना नाम का वायरस चीन का कूटनीतिक सैनिक हथियार था, जो चीन की लैब के अंदर तैयार किया गया और छोड़ा गया जो आधा मरा है आधा जीवित है, हाफ लिव्ड हाफ डेड। पूरे विश्व के अंदर जितनी भी वर्तमान विकसित सभ्यताएं हैं वो सब हाहाकार कर उठी। 1 करोड़ से अधिक संक्रमित हुए, कई लाख मौत के मुंह में चले गए और अभी भी उसका हाहाकार जारी है। जब इसकी उधेड़ बुन शुरू हुई, गहराई में गए, तो ध्यान में आया पिछले 10-12 वर्षों के अंदर चीन ने ऐसे कुछ वायरस तैयार करके दुनिया में छोड़े जो लगा कि नेचर से हैं। अब उनके बारे में विश्व में यह डिबेट चल पड़ी है, इट इज ऑल द क्रिएशन ऑफ चाइना। और इसके कारण चाइनीज फेस एक ह्यूमन फेस है, इसकी बजाय मोस्ट इनह्यूमन फेस ऑफ द वर्ल्ड। ये चीन के बारे में धारणा दुनिया में बन गई है, विच इज द एब्सोल्यूट ट्रुथ। यह एकदम सत्य है और तथ्यों के साथ विद द ऑल एविडेंसेस इट इज एन ट्रुथ। और पूरा विश्व इस महामारी से लड़ रहा है और इस महामारी से निकलने के लिए तरह तरह के मार्ग अपना रहा है। इस महामारी के विरुद्ध विश्व को धैर्य, कॉन्सोलेशन देने के लिए विश्व के अंदर पीपीई किट, सैब, मास्क, सोशल फिजिकल डिस्टेंसिंग, थाली बजाओ, घंटी बजाओ, शंखनाद करो, दीप जलाओ, लॉकडाउन। इतना ही नहीं है, भूख से किसी की मौत नहीं हो। एन आर्मी अगेंस्ट महामारी कोविड-19 और तरह तरह की मेडिसिन्स, वैक्सीन आने वाला है, होम्योपैथी की, आयुर्वेद में काढ़ा और अन्य मेडिसिन्स, बाबा रामदेव के द्वारा भी मेडिसिन्स, ऐसी अनेक चीजें मार्केट में आ गई जिसके कारण भारत का रिकवरी रेट 73% से अधिक का बन गया है और पूरे विश्व के अंदर यह क्यूरेटिव, प्रिवेंटिव और बाद में हेल्थ रिपेयर टू गिवन ए स्ट्रेंथ टू द हेल्थ, ऐसी सब मेडिसिन्स और ऑब्जर्वेशंस के साथ दुनिया के अंदर कोरोना महामारी के विरुद्ध भारत नेतृत्व कर रहा है। दूसरा पहलू जो बड़ा गंभीर है, ऐसे समय में इस कोरोना महामारी और अन्य महामारियों को पैदा करने के लिए चीन के जीवन में रत्ती भर भी यह भाव नहीं है कि उसने अमानवीय, इनह्यूमन कस्टम किया है। इसलिए उसने आज तक क्षमा याचना करना या इस बीमारी से कैसे निकला जाए, विश्व को साथ लेना तो दूर की बात है, उसने आज तक सिंपल सॉरी भी कहने का साहस नहीं किया, क्योंकि इससे सिद्ध होता है द क्रिएशन ऑफ वायरस, यह चीन की सोची समझी कूटनीतिक, सैनिक और एक हमला था विश्व के ऊपर कि पूरे विश्व के अंदर हाहाकार मचा देना, भय पैदा कर देना और उस भय के उन्माद से दुनिया के ऊपर अराजकतावादी सत्ता को कायम करना। दूसरा बिंदु जो इस समय स्पष्ट है, ऐसे समय में चीन ने अपना विस्तारवादी और विनाशक चेहरा भी सामने रखा है। हम पिछले कुछ साल का अगर इतिहास देखेंगे, चीन में जैसे ही कम्युनिस्टिक सत्ता आई, उसने डेमोक्रेसी का पूरी तरह से गला घोंट दिया और इसलिए धीरे धीरे कम्युनिस्टिक सत्ता तानाशाही सत्ता में बदल गई और तानाशाही सत्ता का एक्सपेंशनिज्म शुरू हुआ। उसने कंफचूरिया का हिस्सा दबाया, तैमूर का, ईस्ट तैमूर, इस पर कब्जा किया, तुर्किस्तान का पूर्वी तुर्किस्तान यानी सिंकियांग और अन्य कुछ हिस्सों पर कब्जा किया और ऐसे ताकत पकड़ते पकड़ते उसने एक दिन 1949 to 59 में भारत को अंधकार में रखते हुए हिंदी चीनी भाई भाई का धोखा देकर उसने पूरा तिब्बत हड़प लिया और उससे आगे बढ़ा तो कैलाश मान हिमालय पर हमला किया। कैलाश मानसरोवर, सगरमाथा जिसको माउंट एवरेस्ट इंग्लिश ने नाम दिया, एक्साई चीन आदि कब्जे में कर लिया। उसके साथ साथ ही उसने हांगकांग पर अपना पूर्ण आधिपत्य, तानाशाही सत्ता को लादने की क्रिया शुरू कर दी और आज हांगकांग उसके शिकंजे से स्वतंत्रता विद फुल डेमोक्रेसी लेने के लिए जूझ रहा है। ताइवान पर भी कब्जा करना, उसको घेरना, ताइवान भी अपनी स्वतंत्रता स्वाभिमान की रक्षा करने का वह नजर आ रहा है। भारत को समय समय पर धमकाना और भारतीय सीमाओं के छेड़छाड़ करना, उसमें अंदर आना, चीन जिंदाबाद, चीनी झंडा लहराना आदि हरकतें करके ये बताना और उसलिए उसने एक नाजायज नक्शा भी चीन में प्रकाशित होने दिया और दुनिया में जाने दिया। शरीर पर चीन लिखा है, दाएं कंधे के ऊपर बीजिंग लिखा है, वहाँ हाथ रूपी एक ड्रैगन निकलता है जो हिमालय में रुकता है और पूरे उसके ऊपर उन्होंने लिखा हुआ है हथेली पर हिमालय और आगे उंगलियों पर लिखा हुआ है जम्मू कश्मीर, पीओजे के हिमाचल और उत्तराखंड का हिमालय, फिर नेपाल, फिर भूटान, फिर सिक्किम और फिर अरुणाचल आदि का भूगोल, ये सब उसके हैं। और जो इन्होंने भी आज वहाँ कब्जा किया वो नाजायज है और इसलिए उनके नाजायज कब्जे से मुक्त करके इसका चीन में पुनः मिलन करना, मिलाना, यह उद्देश्य है, भविष्य है। यह उसका गैर सरकारी रूप में मानचित्र हमेशा समय समय पर उजागर होता रहा है, जिससे उसका फ्यूचर प्लान साफ सामने आता था। नेपाल में कम्युनिस्टिक सरकार लाना और डेमोक्रेसी को मर्डर करना, भारत के विरुद्ध गलत फहमियां पैदा करके और चाइनीज एटमॉस्फेयर बनाने की डिप्लोमेसी करते करते हजारों वर्ग किलोमीटर चीन का, नेपाल का कब्जे में कर लिया, हिमालय का, और धीरे धीरे नेपाल और नेपालियों को अपना बंधक बना लिया है विकास के नाम पर। और सरकार दुर्भाग्य से उसके हाथ में बिक गई, जो आज अपनी आज़ादी के लिए लड़ रही है। इसी प्रकार से पाकिस्तान आतंकवाद में पूरी दुनिया में बहिष्कृत हो गया। उसको सहारा देकर विकास के नाम पर नेतृत्व खरीद लिया और धीरे धीरे एक्साई की, पीओजे के और गवादर तक, सी पोर्ट तक कब्जा करते हुए आज वह पाकिस्तान के लिए भी भविष्य का संकट बनकर खड़ा है। भारत नफरत में से पाकिस्तान चीन की झोली में है। इधर इसी के साथ साथ बांग्लादेश, म्यांमार, श्रीलंका में भी वो अपना पांव पसार रहा है, जिसको आज दक्षिण चीन सागर कहा जाता है। मैं आप सबसे निवेदन करूंगा, यह असत्य है, वर्तमान का कब्जा बोल रहा है। इसका प्राचीन नाम है पूर्वी सागर जो प्रशांत महासागर और हिंदू इंडियन ओशन और के हिस्सा था, हिंद महासागर, इनका मिलन का स्थान था, भारत का पूर्व था, इसलिए इसको पूर्वी सागर हजारों वर्ष पूर्व बोला जाता था। उसी हजारों वर्ष पूर्व इसका एक नया नामकरण हुआ मलय सागर, क्योंकि ये जो भारत का दक्षिण का भूभाग है, इसमें मलय पर्वत है और मलय पर्वत सबसे अधिक सुगंधित और वायुमंडल की हवा तरंगे भेजता है, और इसलिए उनको मलय समीरे, यानी वो और हवा की तरंगे हैं जिसमें सुगंध ही सुगंध है, जीवन ही जीवन है। तो इसलिए दक्षिण भारत की मलय समीरें वहां जाती थी, तो इसलिए पूर्वी सागर को मलय समीरों से भरपूर सागर, मलय सागर भी कहा जाता रहा है। बाद में समय के अनुसार कई ताकतों ने इस पर कब्जे किए और उसने अपने नामकरण किए, और चीन ने उस पर कब्जा करने के लिए पहले उसकी भौगोलिक सत्यता को बदला कि चीन के दक्षिण में है, इसलिए दक्षिण सागर, और चीन का आधिपत्य इस पर है, बाकी का आधिपत्य नकार दिया भारत आदि का, और इसलिए दक्षिण चीन सागर। मैं आप सबसे निवेदन करूंगा, इसका एक ऐतिहासिक नाम पूर्वी सागर, मलय सागर, जिसको आज दक्षिण चीन सागर अवैध रूप में कहा जाता है, इसलिए ऐतिहासिक भौगोलिक सत्य को भी प्रतिष्ठित करना, और उसको प्रतिष्ठित करेंगे तो कल वो सत्य साकार भी होगा, यह भी संकल्पना बने। वहाँ 13 देशों का व्यापारिक आवागमन है, विश्व का सबसे बड़ा और समुद्री है व्यापार मार्ग है, जिस पर वो अपना कब्जा करने के लिए छटपटा रहा है, और दुनिया की बड़ी बड़ी ताकतों को भी उसने चुनौती दी है। इसलिए चीनी विस्तारवाद, चीनी और अधिनायकवाद, चीनी सैनिकवाद, चीनी तानाशाही, यह एक बहुत बड़ा संकट भारत के ऊपर ही नहीं, पूरे एशिया पर नहीं, बल्कि पूरे विश्व में आन पड़ा है। इसलिए पूरे एशिया और विश्व को इसके लिए कैसे जागरूक होकर खड़े होना चाहिए और एकजुट होकर आने वाले कल के अज्ञान से, अंधकार से, अत्याचार से और राक्षसवाद से लड़ना चाहिए। यह एक बड़ी चुनौती है। और अंत में बहुत थोड़े से मैं कहूँगा, चीन ने आर्थिक रूप में दुनिया की हर मंडी पर उसका कब्जा हो, दुनिया का हर देश उसके खूबसूरत सस्ते माल से आकर्षित होकर घटिया की तरफ खिंचता चला जाए, और दुनिया के हर देश की मंडी पर और दुनिया के हर ग्राहक की जेब में उसका माल हो और उसका कब्जा हो। इस प्रकार से अपनी एक आर्थिक नीति और कूटनीति को जन्म दिया, और जिसके कारण वह सस्ता, खूबसूरत परंतु घटिया माल के द्वारा दुनिया की मार्केट में छाता चला गया। और इस प्रकार से उसके आर्थिक साम्राज्यवाद को, दूसरा उसके सैनिक साम्राज्यवाद, कूटनीतिक साम्राज्यवाद को, तीसरा उसकी जैविक और अमानवीय जो उसके शस्त्र हैं, उसकी कूटनीति को मुंह तोड़ जवाब देकर विश्व के मानव जाति को और मानवता को, विश्व के अंदर के लोकतांत्रिक जीवन मूल्यों को, विश्व के अंदर हर देश की स्वतंत्रता और स्वाभिमान और विकास की रक्षा करने के लिए आज आवश्यक है चीन के इस चुनौती को मुंह तोड़ उत्तर देने के लिए एक व्यापक जागरण किया जाए। मैं डॉक्टर गौतम झा और उनकी टीम को, जेएनयू को इस बात के लिए बधाई दूंगा। अभी तक जेएनयू के अंदर और भारत को तोड़ने वाले मूवमेंट्स का जन्म होता था, विदेशी शक्तियों के हाथ में खेलने वाले और नेतृत्व का प्रगति होती थी, प्रगटीकरण होता था, और वह भारत को भी अस्वस्थ करते थे। और एक अराजकता भारत में फैलाते हुए दुनिया के देशों के अंदर अलग अलग देशों के कूटनीतिक डिजाइन्स के खिलौने बनकर खेलते थे। परंतु आज का यह वेबिनार तरंग गोष्ठी एक नया शुभारंभ है, जब जेएनयू भारत के राष्ट्रीयता को और विश्व के अंदर की मानव जाति के मानवता के संरक्षण के लिए एक इस वेबिनार से नए आंदोलन की शुरुआत कर रहा है। मुझे पूरा विश्वास है आज का ये कार्यक्रम एक नए आंदोलन का बीजारोपण है, वृक्षारोपण है, जिसमें से भारतीय राष्ट्रवाद, वैश्विक मानव जाति की मानवता, वसुदैव कुटुंबकम, और तीसरी बात कि जो आज सैनिक सशस्त्र शक्ति है, आर्थिक साम्राज्यवाद है, और जो जीवाणु कीटाणु हिंसा की विषैली शस्त्र परंपरा है, इन सब से समाज को जागरूक करते हुए संगठित करके अपना एक महान कार्य कर्तव्य निभाने का संकल्प करेंगी। मुझे पूरा विश्वास है जेएनयू का इस कार्यक्रम के बाद एक नया चरित्र आएगा और आने वाले कल के अंदर भारत विश्व का शासक के रूप में नहीं, बल्कि मित्र के रूप में, बल्कि सहयोगी के रूप में, बल्कि सबके साथ चलने वाला, हरेक की स्वतंत्रता, स्वायत्तता, स्वाभिमान, विकास के गारंटर, किसी का शोषण नहीं, सबको सहयोग देने वाला ऐसा नेतृत्व भारत का राष्ट्रीयता के रूप में उभरेगा, आत्मनिर्भर भारत के रूप में उभरेगा, आत्मसमर्थ भारत के रूप में उभरेगा, और विश्व और मानव समूह और मानवता वह एक नए ज्ञान और प्रकाश की ओर तेज गति से बढ़ेगी। इन्हीं शब्दों के साथ यह वेबिनार अपने उद्देश्यों में सफल हो और इस संकल्प के साथ सफल हो कि एक नई और बौद्धिक क्रांति यह जेएनयू में से जो सच में निकलनी चाहिए थी, आज तक नहीं निकल सकी, वह प्रकट हो रही है। इसका मैं अभिनंदन करता हूं और इसी अपेक्षा से आप सबका भी धन्यवाद करता हूं और बधाई देता हूं। और जयतु भारत, जयतु विश्व के रूप में एक नई क्रांति, बौद्धिक क्रांति का जन्म आज होने जा रहा है। कल गुरु पूर्णिमा है, प्रसंग बहुत अच्छा है। गुरु पूर्णिमा की एक दिन पूर्व की संध्या में इस नई क्रांति के उद्घोष के लिए, इस नई क्रांति के जन्म के लिए ढेर शुभकामनाएं। जय भारत, जय विश्व। बहुत बहुत बधाई है, बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद।
Thank you, Shri Indresh ji. It was a great talk, very inspirational, and I hope our audience, scholars and teachers who are presenting today and will follow the same path in future. And after this conference, we will make sure that we will inscribe and make a transcription of this speech in English to all the audience available here. So thank you, sir, and I hope you are there. Keep blessing us. Now in the line, I would request my student David to introduce Professor Chen, who is our first speaker. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. It's my proud privilege to introduce Professor Yin Hui Chen, the Dean of the International College of Asia University in Taiwan. A specialist in cultural studies and Victorian English literature, Professor Chen obtained his PhD English literature from the University of Maryland, US, where he has been a Fulbright scholar. Beginning his career from the National Sun Yat-sen University, Professor Chen has held several important appointments, such as the chair of the Department of English, the chair of the Department of Western Language and Literature at the National Kaohsiung University, Dean of the College of Humanities and Social Sciences, and Dean of the College of Humanities and Management at Fu Jen University, Director General of the Center for General Education at the China University of Technology, apart from being active in public policy formulation as a consultant, initially to the Education Bureau of Kaohsiung City Government and later to the Ministry of Education, Taiwan. He holds several professional memberships and editorships too, which are far numerous to enumerate here because of our limited time. So, seeking pardon for that, over to you, Chair.
Professor Chen.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for. Could you hear me? Could you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, sir.
Okay. Thank you for this wonderful introduction. First of all, I would like to take this rare occasion to thank, Dr. Gautam, Kumarja, for inviting me for this session. Actually, because our time is quite limited, I will just go direct to some of my observation about the issue. Actually, if we remember, in the United States, people talk about the American dream. Now, people in China start to talk about the Chinese dream or China dream. So I think I want to mention two particular years for you to remember. One is the year 2021. That is next year. Next year is the 100th anniversary of the establishment of the Chinese Communist Party. Another big year is the year 2049. That is another 100-year anniversary of the establishment of the People's Republic of China. And from my observation and my understanding, these 2 years become two big, landmark in the mind of the Chinese people, because they believe at least by the end of 2049, China will become a big empire. So the key point is, was China an empire before? The answer, of course, is yes. China used to be a big empire, even before the Roman Empire. You remember the Han Dynasty started around 220 BC and lasted for about 400 years. The Han Dynasty, the Han Empire, actually was the big empire in Chinese history. So I believe, the Communist Party tried to restore the past glory of that empire. So I think, this is something for us to remember. Actually, if you know about the origin of the name of China itself, you also better understand the philosophy or the mindset of the Chinese people. China in Mandarin, we say 中国. 中 means the middle. 国 means kingdom. So in the mind of the Chinese people, China is always in the middle of the universe, the middle kingdom. And they look at the rest of the world as less civilized, as barbarians. This is how the Chinese people look at the world. Okay, so we will not be surprised if China, after 400 years of decline, okay, as I said, China used to be a big empire, and the empire began to decline around 1620. It's late Ming Dynasty. Then, because of the rise of the West, because of the of the Western imperialism, China have experienced a long recession, a long decline, and now after Xi Jinping came to power, he tried to revive, to restore this past glory. You remember when Deng Xiaoping was the leader, he practiced or announced the so-called high-out diplomacy. In other words, you hide your own ambition. You are ambitious, but you try to disguise your ambition But the current leadership emphasized instead the so-called wolf warrior diplomacy. So he initiated the so-called One Belt One Road policy. He also, initiated the so-called, Asian infrastructure, bank for this purpose. But my experience, my observation is that the core strategy of the Chinese Communist Party is collaboration will prevail over conflict. Now is the stage of conflict, but my understanding of the Chinese philosophy at the end is collaboration will prevail. But before collaboration prevail, a lot of conflict, constant conflict, and conflict becomes an aim to a mean to achieve their aim. So believe me, I think China eventually will become an empire, and now is their empire, a building stage. But if we look at Chinese history over the past 3,000 years, my understanding is when China, even as an empire, China seldom, use military power to conquer other countries. That's my observation. So I believe the Chinese leaders keep saying we try to become an empire, but we aim for peace, not aim for war. So this is something I think, eventually if you consider, the scale value, conflict at the moment looks like very big, quite, obvious, but the top priority is still the collaboration. If you look at the trade war between China and the United States at the moment, fight every day, every week. But when the crucial moment comes, collaboration, negotiation. And I believe even the conflict with India, especially the recent conflict with India, I believe collaboration still will prevail. This is my observation. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Chen. It was a great talk. Very good. I hope we can invite you again to listen to you since we have time limitations. So I have to, conclude. I will ask you to conclude. So we are very sorry. Just 10 minutes is nothing for you. So in the line we have next speaker, Mr. Rene from Indonesia, University of Indonesia, and I call again David to introduce him.
Thank you, Professor Kumar Jai. My name is Rene Pasirajawani. I am the chairman of the Indonesian Center for Chinese Studies. I was invited to speak on this webinar with a title that actually quite very strong impressions regarding to China imperialism and expansionism in 21st century. My understanding regarding to colonialism is actually a practice of domination, which involves the subjugation of one people to the other. And I think in Asia, I mean the whole Asia, including India, Indonesia, China, Southeast Asia, we never use this particular word of imperialism, and especially also on expansionism, because there is no historical note that is related to other imperialist and expansionist practices among the Asians. And one of the difficulties in defining colonialism is actually that is to distinguish it from imperialism. And I think in the term itself, if you look what the Chinese is using, colonialisms. It says that Chamin to E, it always have related to people. The wording itself is European, is Greek, that always involve farmers and so on. So the notions of colonialism and expansionism, imperialism, is always about the people. And I think the peak of this seminar was raised because the conflict that's happening in the border past couple of weeks, and it is very interesting to acknowledge that there isn't any single fire that has been fired upon during that conflict. It is a brawl that is so violent and resulted in the death of around 20 Indian soldiers. I don't have the details on what happens regarding to the brawl itself, but then one thing is very interesting to note here, that the conflict in the border, in the line of actual control between India and China, they're using hand-to-hand brawl. No firearm was involved, meaning that both sides did keep all the agreement that has been reached before on reducing arms existence in the line of the actual control. The concern, I think, is given to particular troublesome development. First, I think, is in recently, China and India significantly ramped up their long-standing border conflict. The confidence-building measure there, signed in 1990, that established a framework for a robust period of detente between the two Asian giants. Second, Beijing is increasingly throwing its weight around South China Sea. The South China Sea development, I think, to a certain perspective, not every Asian have agreed upon. Even in the ASEAN members, how do you actually try to translate China claims in the South China Sea? Yes, there is a strong position of China's military forces in the region than before. The Beijing's naval force projection capabilities have been upgraded and expanded. And also the building of a strategic island, which I will call it as a fake island. Yeah? It's not a reclamation, it was not, because it was not acknowledged by the law of the sea itself. So what China is doing by having these fake islands is similar to what China is doing with fake watches, fake bags, fake eggs, fake gold, whatever. Yeah? It's always a fake thing. The third observation is that also being developed because of the passage of a new national security legislation in Hong Kong. That is, some of the China watchers saw it as a contravenes to the basic law. And this one, I think, is suggesting that President Xi Jinping, who is also the chairman of the Chinese Communist Party, is no longer playing the same rules of the game that his predecessor followed. it will be much more forceful than they were in extinguishing perceived threat to China national territorial integrity. There is also a greater risk, actually. If Beijing use a new security law to unabashedly crack down in Hong Kong, then Beijing will use the legislation as a cudgel. It would end the city's special relationship with China, with the rest of the world. And I think finally, there is also a worried attitude that's happening in East Asia in particular, that if Beijing extends a stand that was happening in Hong Kong toward Taiwan policy, it is likely to lead into a war in the Taiwan Strait. And this is, I think, give the notions that the imperialistic and the expansionistic nature of China has been perceived, especially in Asia, and in particular, I think with India, because India is the only country with a large continent that has so many borders with the other countries in the west, in the north, in the south. And not to mention that India also got similar maritime threat of the expanding of the Chinese neighbor in the area. I think I will end my talk here, and we can have more discussion about this. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Rene. It was great talk. And I think we missed the part we supposed to do, and because there was some network issues. So let me a little bit talk about Mr. Rene. Mr. Rene is a graduate of Chinese Studies Program, Faculty of Letters, University of Indonesia. And he has studied also in Taiwan and researched at many places. He has been, he has been teaching in so many places. And most importantly, he has been writing in Compass. Compass is one of the most important newspaper of Indonesia for almost 30 years. Now, in the present time, he is teaching at the University of Indonesia. So, thank you, Mr. Rene, and I hope you again come to our next webinar, and we will listen to you, with free of time. So in such a short time, it is very difficult to understand your viewpoints, but some of the viewpoints you kept was really great. So our next speaker is Ms. Sukma Sushanti from Indonesia. Again, if David is there, could you introduce her? If not, then I'll introduce her again.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Chair. Ms. Sukma Sushanti has done her postgraduate education in international relations from the Gajah Mada University in Yogyakarta, Indonesia, and is presently a lecturer at the International Relations Department, Faculty of Social and Political Sciences, Udayana University at Bali, Indonesia. Since 2010, she has been a faculty member there. She was also the Executive Secretary of the Governing Assembly of Bali Heritage from 2010 till 2012 and has a keen interest in Asian politics. Over to you, Chair.
Sukma Sushanti, over to you. And now I request also the audience kindly post your question in the question box, in the chat box, and we will put it at the end of this proceedings. We will take one question, one by one questions. Thank you. Ms. Sukma.
I tried to share the presentation material, but I think due to technical problems here, sorry. Okay. Hello, good evening, everybody. Greeting from the island of Bali. Thank you for the opportunity. It's my pleasure to share with all of you in regard the seminar about China, expansionism and imperialism in 21st century. In regard with the topic, I would like to share about the empiric observations that happens in Bali according to the relations, the impact of the relation between Indonesia and China. I delighted to share the topic about the mass tourism policy as a structure of violence in case the increasing number of Chinese tourists to Bali. I would like to start the overview that I would like to say and state it that the relation between Indonesia and China is an unequal exchange. Why I have to say that? Because even though we have long-term relationship in the context of economy, but the position between Indonesia and China is not equal. Since we only able to export our primary good, but on the other hand, we have to receive manufactured goods from China, and the gap is getting wider because of ASEAN framing the cooperation between Indonesia and China. Since the both countries agreed to remove all the market barriers.
Hello.
Hello? Yes, Bapak? Can you hear me? Is it clear?
Yes, we can hear you. Please go ahead.
According to the ICFTA, as the cause problem to create the gap between Indonesia and China is getting wider, since the both countries agree to remove the market barriers, and it brings serious consequence for Indonesia. As I mentioned earlier, because we are rely on primary goods export to China. And the scope of cooperation itself not only in a goods exchange, but also in the services that include tourism sector that happens in Bali. Actually, I already prepared the presentation material to share with all of you about the situation in Bali with the statistic data, how the tourism development in Bali impact by the mass visitors from China. Let me to explain first about the basic concept of tourism development in Bali, that it will be based on the Bali philosophy Trihita Karana, three causes of happiness, that Balinese people believe the happiness will create if we keep balance with the environment, balance with life, balance with the social interaction within the human being. And this philosophy embedded Bali to be open to other human fellow, so that it's difficult for Balinese to build awareness to be pros and cons by the coming of the people in the form of mass tourism. And based on the statistic data 2018, China to be the first rank of the highest visitors to Bali. The top 4 origin is China, and the second is Australia, and then Europe, and the last is Japan. The mass tourism become the opportunity for China to expand their market value. As the highest population in the world, China used tourism here as a political tool to push others to give more flexibility for China's tourists through free visa on arrival and also approved destination system that applied by China and give the status to Indonesia, especially Bali, that become main destination for Chinese tourists. In return, China contribute the highest number of visitors to Bali. Ideally, with these situations, increasing number of visitors will give significant improvement for standard living of the Balinese people. Besides the income they generating from the mass Chinese tourists, is really important for Bali actually to maintain their sustainable tourism. But in reality, based on statistics, the purchasing power of Chinese tourists is the lowest in comparison with the top 4 origin visitors that I mentioned earlier. The lowest, so the number 4. Because the situation, because they have a preference to buy the made in China product that provided by the souvenir shop owned by the Chinese with their own payment system. This phenomenon from the empiric observation will lead to the structural violence situation for local or for Balinese. The density of the visitor from China to Bali giving serious pressure for the resources and leave the waste that harm local environment. The implication of the Chinese mass tourism to Bali with less profit will make the local community unable to resolve the environmental issues, because the environmental issues is more obvious to see. It's very tangible factors that happens because of the mass tourism from Chinese tourists. Based on the Galtung's view, the structural violence in the context of Bali mass tourism is also caused by unequal power and unequal opportunity for Balinese to voice their concern. So this is the brief sharing from Bali for all of you to give the update about the situation, the latest situation about mass tourism that occurs in Bali. Thank you for the time.
Thank you, Mr. Kumar. It was great talk. And now in the line we have Dr. Rahul Mishra from Malaysia. I request David to introduce him, please.
Thank you, Chair. Dr. Rahul Mishra is a senior lecturer at the India-Europe Institute, University of Malacca, Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia. He earned his doctorate from the School of National Studies, Jawaharlal Nehru University, New Delhi, as a UGC National Senior Research Fellow. In 2007, he was selected a fellow in the Australia-India Council. He started his career with the Indian Council of Rural Affairs as a research fellow and later as a researcher at the Institute for Defence Studies and Analysis under the Ministry of Defence, New Delhi, for 4 years. Dr. Rahul Mishra was a consultant with the Foreign Service Institute of the Ministry of External Affairs, Government of India, before joining the University of Malaya. He is a recipient of several prestigious fellowships, such as the Asia Fellowship of the East-West Center in Washington, D.C. in 2015, the Korean Government Fellowship, and visiting research fellowships at Rajaratnam School of International Studies, Nanyang Technological University, Singapore. He is also affiliated with the National University of Singapore. Dr. Mishra specializes on political security affairs of the Southeast Asian region and has a research interest in major power politics in Asia, on which he has several publications. Over to you, Chair.
Thank you, David. Dr. Rahul, over to you, please.
Thank you, David, for that kind introduction. Let me begin by thanking Dr. Gautam Jhaji for inviting me to this very fascinating webinar, which is trying to grasp the impressions that come from Southeast Asian region, wider East Asian region, on how China is behaving with the neighbors and other powers. I'm really, truly delighted to be a part of this webinar. Now, my responsibility in this webinar, the task I was given, was to paint a wider and broader regional canvas and situate China's growing assertiveness and aggressive postures in that context. To put it simply, what do we make of China's recent actions vis-a-vis its neighbors as also major regional stakeholders, such as the US? Now, my experience is that if you happen to speak to China apologists, and I somehow bump into them quite often in Malaysia, they would say that whether it is the Taiwan issue or the South China Sea issue, the boundary disputes with India or Nepal, or even disagreements with the US, these things have always been there, and we have to live with it. I think that phase is over. And as the Indian Prime Minister, Shri Narendra Modi ji, has said the other day, the age of expansionism is over. You cannot encroach and invade into others' territory illegally in the 21st century period. No country is going to take that lightly, and I think India has started the move, which has been appreciated. So I think on that idea, we have to understand and appreciate that 21st century is not the 20th century, not the 19th, 18th, 17th century, and we have to really accept and appreciate that reality. Now, some argue, especially those who have really digged very deep in China studies, they say that no, maybe China is getting a little insecure. It has got its own domestic problems. Maybe Xi Jinping administration, the government has gone a little mad, a little insecure. To them, my question is, which often goes unanswered, is why this madness now? And whether there is a method in this madness. And that's exactly what, ladies and gentlemen, I propose to discuss in next 10 minutes or so. Now, my point here is that to get a comprehensive picture, we have to, rather than looking at China's behavior with its neighbors individually, we have to take a long shot. We have to take a long view of how China has been behaving. We have to look at it as a whole, as a bunch of incidents, separate, isolated incidents, but driven by a single clear motive. Now consider this. During the 36th ASEAN Summit on June 26th, the Vietnamese Prime Minister Nguyen Tran Phuc, he called for respecting the UNCLOS and other laws in dealing with the South China Sea episode. This statement was echoed by other leaders of ASEAN as well, and they presented a united front in protesting, very diplomatically, protesting against China's aggressive postures on the South China Sea. Now, this is not happening for the first time. You go back to 2012, you go back to 2010, 2001 and 2, 98, 94, 96. All these years, ASEAN countries have been saying that, look, we've got to have a code of conduct or a declaration on code of conduct, binding or non-binding, but we've got to respect. China said, after the summit, the Chinese spokesperson, that Mofa said, that, okay, we are ready to restart the negotiation process on COC, DOC, whatever you call it, on the South China Sea. But at the same time, the People's Liberation Army was spotted in the South China Sea conducting a military drill. Now, being an Indian, since I follow the Indian newspapers, I've been hearing day after day, at least for the past 15 days, that Mofa says India and China can still live together. We've got to have a peaceful relationship. These statements have been coming from May onwards. What do we see on ground along the line of actual control is totally different thing. So there is this huge difference, and I'll come to other examples, between what has been promised and what has been delivered. No other country in the world has had such huge difference between what it says and what it does. And the common thread is that it is all designed with a clear motive. Now let us take the third episode. I'm including India here as the second. The third is, on May 22nd, the National People's Congress passed a bill to implement the controversial national security law in Hong Kong. The protests have been going on for long, and we have a Hong Kong expert, Lee Xin-ying. She will focus more on that. The law, which is already implemented from July 1, will substantially curtail the rights of Hong Kong. More than 400 people are already arrested and put behind bars for violating the rules, the new security law that has come out. Now, this violates the spirit of the UK-China agreement. And it also contravenes China's own one country, two system policy. All these years, we thought that China is going to live by its promises. It is going to respect what it had agreed back in 1997 on the Hong Kong issue. And we are still hoping that it will respect the same with Taiwan. Now, as a response, UK Britain has been very diplomatic in saying that they did not openly criticize China, but then, yes, they said that look, all those people who were born before 1997, maybe we can invite them as people in exile, as refugees or whatever, give them jobs. Even that, a humanitarian support offer of people who were earlier, who hold actually the UK passport as well. China, the MOFA has come up with a statement saying that they are going to take a countermeasure, a response action against the provocations that Britain has been making. Is that really a provocation? I leave that as an open-ended question. Maybe we can discuss that later. Now, France and Germany have also been discussing this idea that China has been tweaking with the norms and rules and regulation on trade issues, on cyber issues, and because of that, the EU report 2019 says that China is a systemic rival of the US. Come to fifth point, the cyber attacks on Australia and economic coercion, which was clearly demonstrated how China strong arms countries that dare speak up against it. What was Australia's fault? Australia just said that look, the COVID-19 crisis, we've got to investigate that properly and impartially and find out which country and which people, which area is responsible for it and how did it come into existence. That's it. And it has been clearly strong. We know the South China Sea issue is ever contentious, and even if you leave China outside, there are countries that have mutually overlapping claims, and therefore, maybe hypothetically, even if China is not there, countries would not be able to find it easy to come to a mutually agreeable solution. If you look at the recent development, April and May, China set up 2 administrative districts. So first the island reclamation, we thought that it was just a tiny little thing. Now we've got administrative districts in Fiery Cross Reef and Spratly and Woody Islands in the Paracels. And speculations arise that China is going to set up air defense identification zone, replicating the East China Sea model. For those of you who are not aware of it, China is actually going to set up missiles there. And if anybody encroaches in that so-called Chinese area, it will respond militarily. Now, those who study Taiwan, they know that violating Taiwan's airspace has become another new normal for China in the past just few months. In addition to frequently violating Vietnamese ships and harassing them, trespassing into Malaysian waters, China has recently in past 5 years, and I think Dr. Gautam Jha would bail me out on that, China is actually enraging Indonesia by intruding into Natuna Islands. And it is actually encroaching into the exclusive economic zone area. So far, the Joko Widodo administration has firmly opposed to China's misadventures. He has actually been very strong in saying that, look, we're not going to even discuss this because that area is Indonesia. Being the most prominent and the biggest country in Southeast Asia, I think this firm response coming from Indonesia would send a very strong signal to China, just as the response that is coming from India at this moment is strong enough. I think Indonesia, if it sticks its ground, I think that is going to give another very strong signal. I have already talked about India, and maybe others could pick that thread later. The core of my presentation today, the basic argument is that China is clearly driven by a revisionist and hegemonic design. It has got a long plan. It has got a very concise, comprehensive plan, which is manifested in the way it is handling the Hong Kong crisis and the relations with UK and anybody who is opposing it, the relations with Taiwan, with Indonesia, with Japan, with India, Australia, and the US. Now, the difference between 2017, let's say, and 2010 or the year 2000 is that earlier China used to say that they are not in competition with the US, but now they are actually on the ground against the US in this competition. So, with all this, China's self-propelled rhetoric of peaceful development, one country, two system, community of common destiny, 5 principles of peaceful existence, all of that has fallen flat over the past few months. I believe that China's rising aggression is convoyed by equally assertive postures of the Chinese diplomats, we also call them wolf warrior diplomats, and also the state-run media. And there I think I would conclude by just reiterating the point that Professor Chen had made, that China's long-term design, this is strategy that we see in bits and pieces. We think that it is just about India or just about South China Sea. It is actually part of a long game. The next milestone for them, of course, is 2020, but the longer game is 2049, and they think that by that time, China would be the hegemon, controlling as a middle kingdom, controlling rest of Asia, clearly putting them in a pecking hierarchical order, and also going back to what they claim they were at one point, and that is the masters of this world. I think it is the responsibility of all of us, the neighboring countries, to see this Chinese design and try and counter that. I'll stop there. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Rahul, for giving a very great view about South China Sea and adjacent region. You see, Indonesia and other countries, ASEAN, they have never come out with consensus voice against the hegemony of China. So, and also within ASEAN, there is each and every country has veto power. So, whenever there is a chance that all ASEAN countries will unite and give a unique, give one voice against China, China has, again, I have mentioned in my concept notes, that China has a very vicious planning. What they do is they incline their foreign policy towards Israel by funding everything, and one or two voice, they back off. So that is the reason that for the last 30 years China has been doing what it has been doing, and there is not a consensus among ASEANs. So ASEAN is a big forum. It's a big power. If there is a consensus among ASEAN, then China will move back. That is the issue. Thank you, Dr. Mishra. Now I invite Brahma to introduce Dr. Swamiji today. Brahma, are you there?
Yes, sir. I am there. Thank you, sir. It's my pleasure to introduce to the audience of this webinar Dr. Somojit Ray, who is an expert on US affairs and who is an assistant professor in United States Studies in the School of International Studies, JNU. He teaches master's and advanced master courses on international relations and American society and politics at JNU. He did his PhD from his own center at JNU in the year 2006, and his areas of interest are conservatism and conservative movements in the United States, parties and interest groups, religion and politics, ethnicity, language and politics, domestic roots of US foreign policy, Congress and the presidency. And before joining JNU, Dr. Ray was teaching at MIT Law School and at various colleges under Guru Gobind Singh Indraprasth University, Delhi. He is the author of various research articles and books, which include a book on South China Sea, edited jointly with Dr. Gautam Kumar Jha, and which was published last year. And in 2010, he published a book titled America's Common Bond, Why English Should Be the Official Language of United States. Thank you, sir. Over to you, sir. Over to the chair.
Dr. Swamiji, today kindly start your talk, sir. Dr. Swamiji, today kindly switch on your mic, please. Yes.
Yeah. Thank you, Brahma, for your very longish introduction. And thank you, Dr. Jha, for calling me here. And, certain things I wanted to observe here, make some observations which I think are important, and generally people would not talk about. Is that one is that why are we talking about a rising China? China had already risen. China had risen from the time of the Sino-Soviet split of 1964. The rise of China is not new. It's quite old. It's a very old player in world politics because Mao rejected Soviet leadership and the socialist polycentrism that we saw. That was the reason behind the rise of China, and that was in the early 60s. So, having said that, there are certain other things that I'd like to talk about here. One is that we know that China, being such a huge country, territorially it is huge. Despite that, it is a unitary state. But then, China practices a federalism. Of course, its constitution does not say that. It doesn't speak in so many words. It actually practices a federalism unheard of anywhere in the world. That is a federalism of nationalities. It is not a federation of territories. It's actually a federation of nationalities. And it considers, of course, the Tibetans to be one of the nationalities. Similarly, the Manchus are another. Of course, the Mongols are yet another nationality, the largest being the Han. So, by doing that, by having a federation of nationalities, it has very cleverly, very intelligently prevented itself, prevented any kind of secessionist movements from afflicting that country. So we do not talk about, secessionism in China. It has secured its, that is the point. This federation of nationalities, that it has been very intelligently, very cleverly used to secure itself from any kind of secessionism. So China itself, it is very strong that way. And not being a democracy, it is very difficult to elicit the views of or the feelings of ethnic nationalism or whatever may arise from time to time. And that brings us to the question of Tibet. Now, I would like to follow Professor Chen's direction, the direction that his speech gave in talking about the dynasties. So he was talking about the Han dynasty. I would like to talk about the Qing dynasty, the last dynasty that ruled China. They were Manchus by ethnicity. And I would like to talk about a Qing restoration. The Qing had been restored earlier also. But this is a new kind of Qing restoration where the Manchus no longer hold power. So what kind of Qing restoration is this? The restoration that I'm talking about is regarding two things. One, the status of Tibet, which, see, we are raking up the status of Tibet. China is not doing that. The second thing is regarding border disputes with other countries. And we have a border dispute with China at hand at the present. So why does China have this border dispute? You know, if you talk about imperialism, and if we go by the theory in international relations, if we go by Morgan Hughes' theory, that imperialism is a way of disturbing the balance of power. Of course it is. Now, imperialism, if you go by the dictionary meaning, is to create an empire. It is to expand the kingdom beyond its boundaries. So why does it have dispute at the boundaries, at its borders with other nations? Because of the Qing philosophy, that if the borders are not secure, then the central government becomes weak. So the border has to be secure. The Qing believe that the border peoples may try to secede from the country. So they have to be prevented. There may be unrest. How to prevent that unrest is to secure them and to expand them if possible. Now, during Qing times, there was a resident commissioner of the Qing government living in Lhasa, in Tibet, and there were military advisors. Tibet was only nominally independent. It was a protectorate of the Qing Empire. You know, that is how it was. It was, as far as its domestic policies were concerned, it was autonomous. But for all practical purposes, it was very much part of the Qing Empire. So that is what
Mao Zedong tried to do. So Mao Zedong, very ironically, Mao Zedong and the Qing, they had a common enemy, that is the Republic of China. Now, if we talk about the status of Tibet, the uncertainty regarding that status was created in those 37 years from 1912 to 1949, during which the Republic of China was the regime of the Republic of China. It wasn't a strong regime. In fact, it was a regime of warlords. People like Chen Solin, they were calling the shots. They did not have an all-China presence, neither did they have the all-China authority. So Mao Zedong tried to retrieve that authority. So a new kind of empire building. So he is trying to restore the Qing authority by doing two things. The Communist China, which of course the Mao was one of the founder members. The Communist China is the imperialism that you see there, that you see at present. That has a history, that has a philosophy, that has a past. So you cannot forget why China behaves in a certain way. And in dealing with China, you have to remember its past. You have to remember the way it had behaved as an empire. And I would like to point out that China was never a democracy. China was never, it was an empire. After that, the Republic of China was not a democracy. It was an authoritarian government. So the Communist Party did not put an end to democracy and come to power. There was no democracy. Mainland China had never seen democracy. Taiwan is a democracy. The Republic of China at present, that is the island of Taiwan, that is a democracy. Mainland China was never a democracy. Even when mainland China was called the Republic of China, which of course is inherited by Taiwan, that name, that Republic of China was never a democracy. So to deal with China, you must never expect any kind of, democratic sympathies or that the two democracies are talking towards each other. And in any case, China had a very poor opinion of India. From the time of Pandit Nehru, from the time of India became independent, and India actually, during that era, created a complication in its foreign policy vis-a-vis China. Because it accepted the one China policy, yet gave the Dalai Lama an asylum. So India had itself tied itself in knots. So India, under the present government, is trying to unravel the past. It is trying to undo the past. So that is how I look at it. But then, when you look at China's foreign policy, when you look at China's strategic policy, you should not forget the history of China. You should not forget the history of the dynasties of China, how they behaved and how they looked at the world. And the professor was right in saying that the rest of the world are actually barbarians according to China. China's civilization, according to the Han Chinese, the China's civilization is much developed than the rest, and the rest deserve to be subjugated. And Chinese authority established on them. So in present day, what I see is that I would like to name my presentation as the latest Qing restoration. A communist imperialism, Soviet Union, the type of things that the Soviet Union were doing, that was a kind of imperialism also. But this is a new kind of imperialism. And this is it's not only an Asia-centric imperialism, it extends to the rest of the world. So, and it extends, there is Chinese presence in Africa, there is Chinese presence in Latin America, there is Chinese presence in the United States. Fine, so this is a new kind of imperialism, and China is trying to draw on everything that the world has, everything good that the world has. It is trying to take everything good from the world and give the world its worst. That is what it is trying, and dominate the world for the rest of history. So I think I was the only one for whom the bell rang. So Dr. Jha, I would like to rest my case here
People may not agree with me, but doesn't matter. I hope it opens up a stream of debate. Thank you so much, and may God bless us all.
Thank you, Dr. Samjitra. It was very comprehensive talk, and you listened to the question of the question and elaborated further. It's really great. I think we will have lots of time to further explain in the question and answer session. We have lots of questions are coming. Now in the line we have Professor Ajay Dubey, who is going to speak on issues related to in Africa. He is an expert in Africa. And Brahma will come to introduce Professor Dubey.
Thank you, sir. It's my honor to introduce Professor Ajay Dubey to the audience of this webinar. Professor Ajay Dubey holds master's degree in political science and has done MPhil and PhD in international studies. His research areas are international studies, foreign policy, African affairs, and diaspora studies. He is an author of several books on African affairs and diaspora issues. He is also the editor-in-chief of 3 international peer-reviewed biannual journals, which are Diaspora Studies, Africa Review, and Insight on Africa. He has published more than 3 dozen research papers in journals or as book chapters. He has supervised over 2 dozen PhD theses and over 55 MPhil dissertations. He has been invited as a visiting professor and fellow in several institutions abroad. And he has several collaborative research projects with international institutions. Currently, he is the Secretary General of African Studies Association of India and President of Organization for Diaspora Initiative. In fact, in a nutshell, we can call him, he is a doyen of diaspora studies in India. Thank you. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Professor Dubey. Good evening, and thank you so much for your very kind introduction. I understand the topic that is being discussed, several speakers have shed light in a very analytical manner on different facets of China's external policies, the way it is trying to engage the neighbor and outside world through an imperialist and expansionist design. And in this larger context, I bring to you the other side of China engagement, which is the Western side, you can say, how it engages Africa and what kind of character it displays in engaging Africa. And that will give us some idea that why it is behaving the way it is behaving now with India and with countries which are the further east of India, around Malacca Strait and further down up to Japan. China engagement with Africa largely started independently when the Chinese and Russian split came into open. Before that, it was not engaging Africa seriously, but when the split came into open, it started operating as an independent player in Africa. It started making, even since then, early 60s, a state which has gone for client making. So a state after a state, irrespective of the kind of government that they have, kind of authority that were established in independent Africa, which got its independence in early 60s, it started making them clients. So some places it supported people who should form communist government. Some places it supported even groups like UNITA in Angola, where from it imported its largest hydrocarbon, which was supported by Americans and South Africans, a racist regime. So from 60s onward, to counter Soviet Union, it started a policy of client making in Africa and established identifiable few client states where from it started operating very effectively in Africa. Today, China is the biggest economic player in Africa. With 55 countries, 1.2 billion populations, and having a very strong colonial link, very strong American presence there in the past, China has replaced all of them. Its trade with Africa is touching around $200 billion. The biggest partner of Africa in terms of international trade. The United States is only around 100 billion, India is around 70 billion, but China around 200 billion. In last 10 years, despite massive investment by the colonial countries and United States in Africa, China has surpassed all of them in terms of rate of investment, and in recent times it has emerged as the biggest investor in Africa. Around 147 billion in direct investment and around 53 billion in concessional aid and loan that it has extended to African countries. So roughly around 200 billion plus is what China has invested and provided to African countries in terms of aid and loan. And what it has been able to achieve, it is one of the most preferred partner of many regimes in Africa, which are undemocratic, unaccountable, and irresponsible regimes, which don't care for their people. They get money from China. Below the table, they get arms from China. To keep them in power, they get support from China, in United Nations and other places to argue their case. And they get several access to Chinese government and protection from Chinese government, which were not available from the Western powers. In this process, China has been able to emerge as one of the most influential players in Africa, to the extent that the United States and European feel that they can't compete economically in terms of engaging African countries the way China is engaging Africa. So what you find that they have now gone to establish in 2008 AFRICOM, the Africa Command of the United States, in order to counter China, which had been cutting into their interests over the period of time and replacing their economic and strategic hold in the region. China had been taking it very professionally. It kept engaging African countries through neo-colonial economic means, kept noting the strategic and military challenge that came, and now it has established in 2017 a very powerful base in Djibouti, which is going to provide military support in African countries and also provide support to its operation through Indian Ocean region and managing its communication and line of supply in Indian Ocean through this military base, which is on the land. So in the client making and neo-colonial operation, China has been very effective to the extent that though its economic engagement is not much bigger, it's around the same percentage that you have with India, around 4% of its total global trade. But 64% of its petroleum products come from Africa. 16% of its iron and metal products come from there. 6% of the coppers come from there. So it is involved into exploitation of natural resources, strategic resources of Africa by providing these economic means. And therefore, you find that China, in real term, is a real imperialistic power in Africa, and you find its expression into several ways. It has also moved from imperialist to expansionist initiative, in the sense that, as I was saying, that in order to maintain its economic whole, economic exploitations, imperialistic influence in Africa, it has set up a base in Djibouti and set up what you know already a string of pearls all around Indian Ocean to maintain its economic hold on Africa by keeping the supply line open or communication and shipping lines safe for Africa, for Chinese companies. There are 800 companies which are working, 800 corporations working in Africa, and these corporations are funded by the state at a loan which is almost free, 1.5% loan for 15 to 20 years, 1.5% interest. And they are supported, guaranteed, secured by the might of the Chinese influence in Africa. So you see how they have been able to control that region. The Belt and Road Initiative, which has 65 countries, out of that 20 countries are from Africa. And the nerve center of that BRI, Belt and Road Initiative, remains in Djibouti. So from there, they are connecting the other part where the military base is lying. So you can imagine that it's not just imperialism, but with Djibouti base and its bases in Indian Ocean, it is also expanding the territorial control through military control and by physically being present in Africa. So that's another sign how the China is also having expansionist aspiration. And therefore, when you see China back home, back in Southeast Asia, you understand that it's not an isolated and geographically or localized issue. It's the general ambition of China to be imperialistic and expansionist. And that is how we should understand China and face it in this region as well. I'll stop here. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Dube, for sketching Africa's grip of Africa. And in fact, in the same way, in the same method, in the same format, they have captured South China Sea. And also, one of the most important factors, which I would like to see, dumping cheap goods in developing countries, particularly in ASEAN countries. And one of the examples I would give you, 20 years back, when I used to roam around in the market of Indonesia, Thailand, there were a lot of local products. Now all the markets, supermarket, you just go around, even in a small, local markets, they are filled with Chinese products, and God knows what will happen to their workforce. So thank you, Professor Dube. Now in the line, we have Advocate Shiraj Qureshi ji, and I would request Shambhavi to introduce Advocate Shiraj Qureshi. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Shiraj Qureshi is basically from Gwalior. He is an advocate at the Supreme Court of India. He was the National Secretary of BJP Alpsankhyak Morcha. He was a law officer in the Office of Advocate General in the High Court of Madhya Pradesh. Mr. Qureshi is also the member of Hindu-Muslim Ekta Manch. He has been vocal about Indian saints and Uniform Civil Code. He is a prominent face on Indian national television on debate related to nationalism and factually defended the inclusive nature of recent CAA. He was also awarded President Rover Award by former President of India, Ramaswamy Venkatraman, for service to others. Sir, Indic Wealth Society welcomes you. Over to the chair.
Advocate Shiraj, could you switch on your mic, please? You need to switch on your mic, please.
Now you are able to hear me?
Yes. Thank you.
Now you are able to hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Rabbi shrah li sadri wa yassir li amri wahlul 'uqdatam min lisani yafqahu qawli. Good afternoon to our keynote speaker, Shri Indresh Kumar ji, who is the Global Ambassador of Peace and Harmony, and also the chair of the present webinar, Professor Gautam Kumar Jha Sahab, and all respected dignitaries and our viewers. With great joy and immense exultation, I feel privileged to extend my warm welcome to all presented here for attending this international webinar. First of all, it is very important for me. I would like to give the message to the Muslim citizen of China, because maybe this program is being watched by the Chinese intelligence or media too, in Chinese language only. Ni hao, zongguao muslimin gongamin, ni zai zongabo, zao dao puhati, wu wai zin dua ran, gan dao ziao ao, wu de zongguao zindu yangguami, Irani, Belvin, Wuban, Ziang, Banin, De, Shangyan, Dai, Zai, Quan, Xiai, Zonggabu, Shi, Shize, Shangzu, Zaogao, Di, Guazia, Timam, Xinjiani, Sudi, Kozang. Now I just translate this message to the Muslim citizen of China, because my subject is the Muslim persecution of Muslims in China. Hello Muslim citizens of China, you are being vandalized in China. I am proud Indian, my motherland India always with humanity. We shall bring your voice to the whole world. China is the worst nation in the world who believe in the expansion of land. But we believe in development and human value. Now it's a very privilege for me to talk with you people. I am very happy today that I will speak in favor of my beloved country India today, as well as I will speak against the Chinese who have tried to encroach on India's border. But by the way, media and democracy are banned in China. The Communist Party is the only dictator who keeps the government under full control, because of which clear barbarism of China takes time to appear in front of the whole world. Most of the time, it does not even get out the border of the China. China has not believed in any religion and has always believed that religion is an offense. That is intoxications, and following this principle, China first targeted Buddha religion in the Tibet, and the Chinese government in the 10 of millions massacred Buddhist civilians and captured the Tibetans. Now their Tibetan government is being run in our India, and Honorable Dalai Lama with their fellow men, they are staying in India, and they are our guests only. Now his eyes are on Islam, and the Chinese government has started vandalizing the Muslim citizens of his own country in 5 provinces. Because first of all, we have to know the demographical, geographical area of the China, because only 5 states, they call the state the province. So first of all, Xinjiang, Qinghai, Gansu, Ningxia, or Yunnan. There are 5 states, 5 provinces of China where the Muslims reside as not you can say the majority, but in a good number of Muslims. Okay, first of all, we talk the history of Islam in China, because it is very important. If you want to know the persecution of Muslims in China, we should know the history of Islam in China first. The history of Islam in China goes back to the earliest year of the Islam. According to China Muslim traditions, legendary accounts 18 years after the Muhammad Paigambar Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, the third Khalifa of Islam, who is Usman. Usman ibn Affan sent delegations led by Sayyid ibn Abi Abbas, the maternal uncle of Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, to the Chinggis Gyanzang Empire. So it was the history, because after 20 years of the death of Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, the Islam appeared in the China. In Song Empire, at the time of the Song Emperor Shang Tuan, he invited more than 5,000 Arab men from the Bukhara to settle in China. The emperor used these men in this campaign against the Liao Emperor in the northeast Later on, these men were settled between the Swan capital of Haifang and the Yanqing. The Yanqing, today we call the Beijing only. It was the earlier name of Beijing, Yanqing. The objective was to create a buffer zone between the China and the Lyon. China on the Lyon between they want to buffer state by the Muslims only, so they settled them, these Muslims, in this area. Okay, now we should know the furthermore about this Muslim. 10,000 Arab men and women migrated to China on the horseback and settled in all the provinces of the north and northeast in that era. So the Muslim history is so old in the China because it's not new. The Arabs from the Bukhara were under the leadership of Prince Amir Sayyid. Amir Sayyid was the person who brought all Bukhara's Arab men in the China, and later on the prince was later given an honorary title. He is reputed of being the father of the Muslim community in China. Prior to him, Islam was named by the Tang and Song Chinese and Dashi. Dashi means the word Dashi is the Arabic word, and in Persian language it is called the Tazi. Tazi. So in Chinese they called it the Dashi only. So Dashis are the ladies of Muslim ladies there. So afterward from Chinese people from the Song dynasty era also married women from the Dashi, the Arabian women. So they have the mixed generation Chinese and the Arab origin. So but they are the Muslims only. Now we have to talk the very important topics that is called the cultural genocides of the Muslims in China. Because the Muslims are facing the cultural genocides, especially in the Xinjiang. Xinjiang is the place where the Chinese Communist Party, because there is no democracy in the China, only Communist Party leads the government only. The president of China is also the president of the Communist Party also. Now we have to categorically study of the persecution of Muslims in China, especially in the five provinces. On the edge of a descent in for Western China and imposing building sites behind the fence topped with the barbed wire, large red character of the face argue people on the learn Chinese, study law and acquire job skills. God makes clear that visitors are not there. Because they have made some center in this province for the training for mind washing of the Muslims. They don't want Islam in their region, so they are trying to brainwash of the Muslim students, Muslim young people or the other Muslims. So just we are telling you the story, the real story which happened in the time China. Inside, hundreds of ethnic Uyghur Muslims spend their day in the high pressure indoctrination program where they are forced to listen to lectures, sing hymns, praising the Chinese Communist Party and write self-criticism essays. According to detainees who have been released, the released people they spoke or revealed all these things which was happened in this camp. The goal is to remove any devotion to the Islam. It is the main devotion. Now, Abdul Salam Mohammadi. Just I want to quote one person who was detained in this camp only. He said, the police detained him for the reciting a verses of the Quran at the funeral. After 2 months in a nearby camp, he and more than 30 other people were ordered to renounce their past life. He said, now further he said that was not a place for the getting rid of extremists. He recalled that was a place, but that will breed vengeful feelings and the erase equal identity. This is the crux of the matter. They want to vanish the Uyghur identity, Islamic identity, Chinese, the present Chinese community. A camp outside Bhutan, an ancient oasis town in the Taklama Desert, is one of the hundreds that China has built in the past few years. It is part of the campaign of breathtaking skills and the atrocity that has swept the hundreds of the thousands of the Chinese Muslims for weeks or months of what critics describe as the brainwashing, usually without criminal charges. So, limited to Chinese western region of Xinjiang, it is the country's most sweeping entertainment program since the Mao era and the focus of a growing chorus of the international criticism. China has sought for the decades to restrict the practice of Islam.
Please conclude. We are running out of time.
Yeah, just I will conclude. I will conclude within a time. Islam and maintaining of iron grips in Xinjiang as a region almost as big as Alaska, where more than the half the population, 20 million, belongs the Muslim ethnic minority. So now it is very clear the Chinese government, present Chinese government, they want to vanish the identity of Muslims. They are transformation through education. They call the transformation through the education centers, but there is no transformation. They want to vanish the Muslim identity. There are specific persecutions of Muslims in China, and we should brought this fact before the whole world. And it is my pleasure to speak in front of our mentor, Shri Indresh Kumarji. I denote my gratitude in front of you that you have given me the opportunity to talk about the country for this international forum. Listen me. Thanks for patient hearing too. Thank you very much.
Dr. Shiraz. We will keep giving you opportunity in future, and I think we need to hear from you. And you have explained, how our brothers, particularly how our Muslim brothers are being prosecuted in China. We have a lot of audience from Indonesia and Malaysia as well. I hope they are listening you. So in future, we will have such kind of conference where we will deal only with persecutions of minorities and Muslims and other communities in China. Not only that, even Tibetans, those who have been occupied, Tibetans are also persecuted in a very, very worst way. So, thank you, sir. And now next we have this speaker, Shri D. Balakrishnan. I request somebody to introduce Balaji.
Thank you, sir. Mr. D. Balakrishnan is a research scholar at Asian Europe Institute at University of Malaya, Malaysia. He has served as advisor of City Academy Student Council. He has also developed and organized lecture modules and teaching resources for the revised 2019 to 2021 physics and A-level syllabus. He was also selected to attend the Cambridge Assessment International Education Professional Development course. Indic Bell Society welcomes him. Over to the chair.
Desji, you have 8 minutes to speak. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Professor Gautam, and let me first congratulate you and your team for putting across a very eminent panel and also for giving me the privilege to speak in this panel. Ladies and gentlemen, I come from Malaysia, and it so happens that 60 years back, our founding father, Tunku Abdul Rahman, had envisaged, had predicted China's rising assertion, and that's why he took a very, very uncompromising and unforgiving position against China. In 1959, just after 2 years after Malaysia got its independence, when the Honorable Dalai Lama proposed for the United Nations to speak on the Tibet case after the Chinese aggression in March that year, on September 28, Malaysia became the first country to actually propose and table a resolution to urge for the respect of Tibetan human rights. In 1962, when the India-China war erupted, Malaysia became the first Asian country to actually offer monetary support through the Safe Democracy Fund to support India against the Chinese aggression. Now, the idea, ladies and gentlemen, is because Tunku Abdul Rahman had always believed that the Chinese communists will never be able to accommodate for a peaceful coexistence. And today, when we look at what happens in the Southeast Asia region, nothing could be further than the truth. Now, I think when I talk about the Southeast Asian region and the South China Sea dispute, we will not need any specific introduction to the issue. The claim that China has on the South China Sea dispute is only historical, which they derive from a map, loosely derived from a map of the Han Empire. And from there, they claim 90% of South China Sea. There is no legal basis, and that is why you find that China does not respect or even recognize any of these international laws or conventions. Now, ladies and gentlemen, my focus here is I want to bring you to understand how is this Southeast Asian region and ASEAN are reacting towards the Chinese aggression. If we look at ASEAN and we expect the region to behave like the US, the UK or the EU, that will definitely not be possible because ASEAN countries are middle powers, are small powers. So we cannot expect them to behave like major powers. So what are they then doing when we talk about the Chinese aggression? Now they are doing something that we call as hedging. So in one part, they actually engaged with China. They said, okay, let's sit down for negotiations. Let's sit down for code of conduct. And on the other part, they are upgrading strategic partnerships and military diplomacy, particularly with India. Now let me talk about the first part first, where we talk about the code of conduct. And I think Dr. Mishra and also Dr. Gautam has mentioned about the recent online summit of ASEAN, where we spoke on how Vietnam has actually said that UN clause must be the sole basis of any negotiations. Now there are two things that we have to observe here. First of all, this shows that ASEAN has become more assertive because they know that China does not recognize UN clause, they have not signed the draft. But even after that, ASEAN says that will be the only negotiation we accept. There will not be any piecemeal concessions, there will not be any appeasement. Secondly, decisions in ASEAN are taken by consensus, which means when Vietnam announces this decision, Cambodia, Laos and Myanmar, the traditional Chinese client states are also in agreement with this. And why are they doing that? Because China is also using this kind of territorial aggressions or support to local insurgency groups to destabilize this country. Now if you look just 2 days back, one of the senior generals of Tatmadaw, the Myanmar army, actually directly criticized China for supporting local insurgent groups like the Arakan army and the ARSA groups with Chinese-made weapons. And why are they doing that? Because Myanmar under Aung San Suu Kyi has said they are going to revise a few BRI projects because it's going to lead them to debt trap diplomacy. So by mildly destabilizing them constantly, China can use it as a bargaining chip to leverage and to get their BRI projects done very smoothly. This is why even Chinese client states are traditionally being very, very cautious on China. On the second front, when we talk about military diplomacy, now India comes as a very, very important player here. Because for the whole region, India has been the only country, the only major power that has not posed any security threat. China has done with communist insurgency support, and also the India-China war has given a big misgiving and mistrust towards China. But India has not done anything like that. And under Modi's Act East policy, we find that Southeast Asian countries and India are getting very, very closely together on military cooperation. In 2016, 500 million USD were extended by Modi ji to Vietnam for them to purchase military equipment. Then with Indonesia, they have signed a lot of defense pacts to increase and enhance cooperation. Between Singapore, Thailand and India, in 2019, the first trilateral maritime exercise was introduced. And this was the first one done in Port Blair, where India's prestigious Andaman Nicobar Command is located. So all this tells you that these Southeast Asian countries have started to move and trust India on strategic partnerships and on military diplomacy. And similarly goes for the Philippines, where during President Ramnath Kovind's visit, we find that many defense pacts were signed, and increasingly India and Philippines are getting closer. And within the Philippines, if you look at the recent idea, where when we talk about the US, for example, President Duterte was having some issues with President Trump, and he threatened to actually say, we are going to cut off this 40-year-old, 50-year-old defense treaty. But eventually, even then, he had to reverse that decision because Chinese aggression has been in such a case in South China Sea. So, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to conclude by looking at the whole issue in a very, very, from a Chinese perspective and from a Southeast Asian perspective. I think when we talk about the South China Sea dispute, it is the greatest tragedy of 21st century for China. Because I think Professor Chen has mentioned about this Chinese dream of President Xi Jinping. And in order to overcome these centuries of humiliation, which they call, and this is why this Chinese dream idea came, China has got so engrossed into its own history, like in the case of South China Sea, that it cannot return or reconcile with the reality it is living. And the irony is, in this greatest tragedy, where it is having its biggest identity crisis, China still feels that it is an invincible superpower. And I think, I think more than any country, India or Southeast Asia, the greatest tragedy is on China, and they should really realize that. And secondly, when we talk about Southeast Asia, I think we will be disappointed if we look at it how we expect it to react like a major power. And this is what eminent scholars like Professor Amitabh Acharya have constantly mentioned, that we cannot look at Southeast Asia as a major power or asking or expecting them to behave in that way. So how are they doing? We find that on one hand, they have become more assertive in their negotiations in asking for a code of conduct on the South China Sea. On the other hand, ladies and gentlemen, we find that they have upgraded their strategic partnerships and military diplomacy, particularly with India, with US as usual, but particularly it has been growing with India under the active policy of Prime Minister Narendra Modi. So with that, I thank you for this opportunity. Thank you, Dr. Gautam, and thank you, Eminent.
Thank you, Des, to you, for the time, the great talk. You stressed from South China Sea to entire region and how Southeast Asia and ASEAN is reciprocating Chinese hegemony. In fact, some of the countries in recent past, Duterte, he thought that throughout the US and coming to Xi Jinping would do some favor to what they were fighting for. But it fired back, and now Duterte is on that foot now. So the thing is that if you think, even in your dream, that China would do something good to you, it's absolutely wrong. And that has been proved since the Communist Party came to China. So thank you, Desji. Now, the last speaker in the line is Ms. Lee Shi Yin from University of Malaya. I request Shambhavi Achal to introduce her.
Thank you, sir. Ms. Lee Shi Yin is a research scholar at the University of Malaya, Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia. She holds a bachelor degree in East Asian Studies, University of Malaya. Her research work focuses on the role of European Union in supporting pro-democracy movement in Hong Kong. She also holds the position as the head of Department, Bureau of Display and Exhibition Buddhist Society, University of Malaya. And she is also the head of Department, Bureau of Program and Protocol of Battle of the Brains, University of Malaya. Thank you and proceed to you, sir.
Ms. Lee Shi Yin, over to you. You have 8 minutes. Thank you. Could you switch on your mic, please? Yes.
Okay, thank you. A very good evening to everyone. So I would like to talk about China and the Hong Kong crisis. So as all of us aware, there is a series of protests and pro-democracy movement in Hong Kong, starting from 2019 even until now due to 2 issues. First is about the extradition bill, and second is the Hong Kong national security law. So the extradition bill allows Hong Kong to consider requests from any country for criminal suspects to be extradited, even though this country did not have an extradition agreement with Hong Kong, for example, China, Taiwan, and Macau. So why is this law being pushed for? It starts with a murder case. A Hong Kong citizen committed a crime in Taiwan. He killed his girlfriend when both of them in Taiwan. He discarded the dead body and then he escaped back to Hong Kong. Although he admitted his crime, but Hong Kong and Taiwan could not charge him for murder. Hong Kong court could only charge him for the theft, and he being sent in prison for 39 months. While Taiwan court only able to issue a list of wanted fugitives for 37 years on him. So when the bill being announced by Carrie Lam, which is chief executive of Hong Kong citizens opposed and go for protest. So the protest is being named as Anti-Extradition Law Amendment Bill Movement in 2019. It started in March 2019 with peace demonstration, and then it exploded into mass movement in June 2019. The protest on 12 June 2019 is the turning point of the peace protest into aggressive protest. there is clashes and confrontation between protesters and police first, resulted in 82 protesters and 22 policemen injured, 150 rounds of tear gas being fired. From that day onwards, the protest turned into violence and the situation is out of control. So actually, initially, the protest is merely to oppose the implementation of the extradition bill, but later it spread to reflect wider demand for democratic reform and also requests on the investigations on police brutality. So as for 18 November 2019, around 4,500 protesters being arrested. So how international community respond to this? On 24 May 2019, 11 EU representatives, they meet Carrie Lam and they urge her to fine-tune the extradition bill, and they also passed her a formal note to put their concern in record. In addition, EU also echoes the 5 demands of the protesters. European Parliament adopted a resolution on 18 July 2019. The discussion is about the 5 demands being requested by the protesters. So how is the result of the extradition bill? In the end, Carrie Lam announced that the bill is dead. So moving on to the second issue, which is the Hong Kong national security law, which causes the protest in Hong Kong in this year. So on 30 June 2020, China enacted the Hong Kong national security law. So the law has 6 chapters, a total of 66 articles. The law criminalizes secession, subversion, terrorism, and interference by foreign or external forces in the city affairs, while the penalty is life in prison. So why is this law being imposed? So according to PRC, the law is to safeguard Hong Kong economic development and also their political stability. However, many say that the protest in 2019 might be the main reason for this law back again in agenda in 2020. So how Hong Kong citizens react to this? They go for protest. And they also prominent democracy activists, Joshua Wong, Agnes Chow, they announced that they would leave their party, which is their Mosisto. And furthermore, some pro-independence groups, for example, Student Localism, Hong Kong National Front, they stopped their operation in Hong Kong. The Mosisto also announced that it would disband. And for ordinary people, which is citizens of Hong Kong, they refuse to comment and give their opinion when being interviewed regarding on the national security law. This can be considered as an unusual phenomenon in Hong Kong. And people also start to delete their content on social media, which is sensitive. Hong Kong citizens, they worried that the law might crack down on rights and political activists in Hong Kong, and the protesters who joined in protest in 2019 might be arrested under the law. And for, moving forward, what is the result of the law and the protest regarding Hong Kong national security law? For the first time, the police banned the annual march, which is the 23rd anniversary of Britain's handover of Hong Kong to China in 1997. And the first arrest under Hong Kong national security law is on 1st July 2020. 10 of them were arrested just 1 day after the law took effect. How international community responds towards the national security law? UK, as the Hong Kong former colony, on 1st July 2020, the UK Prime Minister Boris Johnson, he announced that all British national overseas BNO passport holders and their dependents will be given right to stay in UK for 5 years, including the right to work and study. After 5 years, they can apply for settled status and a year later for citizenship. According to data, nearly 3 million Hong Kong citizens eligible for the BNO passport. And for EU, President of European Commission Ursula von der Leyen and President of European Council Charles Michel, they announced that they will discuss within EU whether to discredit China as a trading partner. So based on the 2 issues, why Hong Kong citizens oppose the bill and also the national security law? First, because they think that the both laws violate the Sino-British Joint Declaration and also the one country, two system principle. Second, they think that they should enjoy own laws and regulations as promised in Hong Kong Basic Law, Hong Kong Mini Constitution, which ensure Hong Kong will retain its own legal system and legislative system, including an independent judiciary. Third, the citizens also think that they should enjoy civil liberties and rights, for example, freedom of speech, press, and also assembly. Fourth, the citizens worried and afraid that China will gradually take over control the Hong Kong even before 2047. So what is the driving factors which lead China doing so? So China always wanted to exercise its power in Hong Kong and also Taiwan. China even used its power to intervene Taiwan's position in international arena to ensure it is not being recognized as a country, for example, WHO. Second, China sees Hong Kong as a part of the country, which it should fully under China's control. Third, China also see Hong Kong as an uncertain factor, which like a bomb might explode anytime. Because in the past history, Hong Kong has many similar examples, which their citizens will protest and also demonstrate to show their opposition to the government approach. For example, Umbrella Revolution, Annual Tiananmen Square March, and the recent extradition law and national security law. So PRC is in fear and worry. So in order to prevent the same issue happen in future, PRC push for the national security law. When it comes to the international community response to these two issues, although UK is opening the citizenship to Hong Kong citizens, however, there's a risk if huge immigration happen and UK might face the same issue as migration issue in EU, which one of the factors lead to Brexit. So this might not be a good solution in long term. There are a lot of issue rises such as, will UK be ready to take in so many Hong Kong residents? Will there be enough job for them? And second, EU should think carefully the pros and cons to discredit China as a trading partner. Because PRC today is a major power and many countries are depending them in economy. Is EU approach will bring more negative effect on EU itself or China itself or international economy. For your information, China is EU's second biggest trading partner, while EU is China's biggest trading partner. China is EU's biggest source of imports and second biggest export market. So as we all know, the relationship between Hong Kong and China is always a sensitive issue and long-rooted in the heart of both countries' citizens. Recently, the two cases had escalating the tension. So in future, after 2047, with the due of Sino-British Joint Declaration, what will happen to Hong Kong? There is no any legal arrangement at this moment yet. At that time, China can have fully control of every aspect of Hong Kong. However, several issues will occur. For example, will the Hong Kong citizens accept this, which go according to the agreement? Will they willing to give up their liberties and freedom of speech? Second.
Thank you, Lee. That sense we are we are going over the time, and you have explained quite a great deal about what is happening in Hong Kong, and it's a burning issue right now. I think the way the pandemic came, so just to come over and divert the mind of the global community that it has been accusing China and also requesting the world community to start investigation and in China about the COVID. But at the same time, you see how India has responded. It has given a very different message towards the world community, particularly those countries who are, being directly impacted by Chinese hegemony. And you can see what is happening in South China Sea, with ASEAN and Hong Kong. And the biggest response, what we could guess, is the UK's response. I think the Chinese government should feel ashamed what the UK has done to Hong Kong, that it has offered back. So, it is, you see that you are not able to protect the interest of your own people. Now, what can you worse than that? Thank you, Lee. I think we need one more conference, one more webinar like this to listen to you guys, I think for a whole day. And conference, we can listen to you fully. It was great. You talk very rapidly, very fast, and try to incorporate everything. It was great. So now we open the fora for the question and answer sessions. We have a lot of questions waiting. So I would encourage my own delegates, speakers to ask questions. Then we will open the fora for the audience. So let us know if any of our colleagues, presenters have any questions to each other. Then we will open the fora for the colleagues, for the audience. Thank you. Any question from our colleagues, from our presenters? If there is no question, anyway, they are free to ask any questions. Then let us ask question, take question one by one. I see there are questions. One question is, hello, my name is Arvin from University of Riau, Indonesia. My question is, what is indicator that we can claim China do the debt trap to another country like Sri Lanka because so many journals that I would read said that what China do to Sri Lanka is death trap. Riau is in Indonesia. I think this question pertains to all the speakers, but what I listened from Professor Dubey, what China has been doing in Africa, I think Professor Dubey would be the best person to answer this question.
Yes. I think the debt trap is a very well deployed strategy of China in Africa. A very large number of countries are under debt trap, and as you know, debt trap is a concept when 20% of your foreign exchange earning goes for paying your loan, then you are entering into a debt trap. At least out of 55 countries, there are around 16, 17 countries which are under debt trap of China. And what is surprising is not 20% of the loan, of the foreign exchange that they have to pay for their loan every year. They have to pay more than 100% of their national income from outside that they have in terms of foreign exchange that goes in paying the loan. And therefore, the Chinese make them so dependent that they are not able to pay the debt, and they will give further concession in terms of mines and other mineral resources, and the China keep them under their total control. At times, it threatens to take their seaport, at times it threatens to take over the buildings and the areas that has been leased to them in terms of mines and mineral resources. So that's something which is very regularly practiced by China in Africa.
Thank you, Professor Dubey. The next question is, my question is to Professor Rahul Mishra. What is your opinion upon China due to its ongoing internal conflicts and because its own citizens are going against the government? The Chinese government trying to divert the issue or trying to control its own citizens by creating disputes with neighboring countries. Dr. Rahul, do you have any comments on this question?
Well, one of the explanations is that currently what Xi Jinping is doing is whipping up nationalist sentiments, which is characteristic style of all communist governments. He's whipping up these nationalist statements and sentiments and trying to divert the attention of the domestic constituency of Chinese people from what is happening in Xinjiang, what is happening in Sichuan province, which is adjacent to Tibet, what is happening in Tibet itself, and also in Hong Kong, and also relations with Taiwan. Just remember 10 years ago, it was not that bad. So overall, it seems that Xi Jinping regime is also facing a crisis, and that's why they are doing it. But that is just one part of the story. The complete picture is that Xi Jinping has his own international agenda, and by focusing more on that, he's trying to cater to, he's trying to get the support of domestic constituency.
Thank you, Rahul. And Dr. Rahul, since you are my junior, your name, spontaneously comes to my mind. Next question is to Professor Chen. The person who has asked question, her name is Udipta Singha Lakar. Udipta, I do not know the she. I'm sorry. Udipta Singha Lakar from Assam. He is asking, my question is to Sir Chen, is how do you view the current FO and OPS carried out by the US Navy predominantly in the South China Sea to uphold the essence of unclosed and pre-navigation? Professor Chen.
Asking me?
Could I repeat the question? Yeah.
Yes. No, I understand the question.
Yes.
Okay. I think I can sort of conclude, my feeling about today's speech. I strongly fear the resentment of the speakers against Chinese hegemony, and me living in Taiwan also fear this is the reality we have to live through. But I want to emphasize actually China it's an empire. It's a land empire. It's not an ocean. It's not a sea empire. So by being a land empire, my understanding China should be more conservative, more traditional. If China happened to be an ocean or sea empire, then like the British, then it would be totally different. So I would think, as I said at the end of my talk, conflict has been the major, strategies for dealing with international affairs. But the Chinese Community Party has a final say about collaboration. In other words, I believe collaboration will prevail at the end because of its land empire nature. Unlike the British. That would be my answer to the question. I'm not sure whether you agree with me or not, but through my long observation, so in Taiwan, even though we are intimidated every day by the Chinese, but actually we fear war between Taiwan and China will not become a reality.
Thank you, Professor Chen. Next question is from Bhaskar Jha. He's asking, China continuously expands its territory, but will opposing India change China's nature of expansion? I think he wants to ask that if India keeps opposing China, will China change its plan or what? So I think any of us in the panel can answer this question. Maybe Professor Chen himself.
Okay. I think, it's unusual in the history of Asia to have three big superpowers coexist at the same time. We have China, we have India, and then we have Japan. Look at the past history. It has never happened before. So I believe these three superpowers are still learning how to live with each other. This is my observation. So I think, perhaps you feel the conflict is escalating, but my understanding, the conflict will die out when these three parties, even Japan, should be included in this, arena. When these three parties have learned how to work with each other, I think peace will prevail.
Right. Thank you, sir. Now, the next question is addressed to Mrs. Sukma Sushanti by Tita Eresan. I think the question is also from Indonesia. I would like to ask the question to Mrs. Sukma Sushanti. The threat, kindly switch off your mic.
Yes?
Yeah. Sukma Susanti, can you hear?
Yes, but the question is?
Regarding the threat faced by Bali by Chinese mass tourism, what do you think the best option should be taken by the government in order to stop this stop this form of structural violence? When the government also allowed the policy that supports this movement?
For the questions, I would like to respond that in international relations, we cannot neglect the need of the relations with the other states. And in terms of with China, the existence of relations between Indonesia and China, it doesn't mean Indonesia doesn't have any power. The sovereign state, every sovereign state have a power. But the problem is they are willing or not to exercise their power in facing or to build standpoint to the others' interest. And especially in the context of structural violence, we cannot define easily the perpetrators. Since the perpetrators in structural violence is not unitary actor, because it's very complex and interrelated each other, including the value of the mindset, the group of people or group of elites. It's also possible to lead a violent situation and condition for the other people. And I want to add the answer about the state positions to face the other interests. The one thing that state to be remembered, the element of powers of the state is a citizen. So, from my opinion, the state cannot sacrifice the interests of their people, the interests or the need of the people. That's my question. That's my answer to respond to the questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Sukma. Now the next question is to Mr. Rene Patirajamane. The person who is asking the question is named Mr. Raja. How Indonesia would get affected financially when its two friends, China and India, have developed different relationship? This is very complicated question.
Can you repeat the question again, please?
How Indonesia would get affected financially when its two friends, China and India, have developed bitter relationship?
I think that there should be an understanding first. What China has been doing so far, and what China has been trying to expand their relationships, is completely the same thing that has been done by other superpowers, by the other big countries, the US, Germany, for example, or even India. Yeah. And the world is already changing. We need to understand that when India reacted to China regarding the conflict in Ladakh, Prime Minister Modi immediately announced the use of any Chinese apps in India. When the US is claiming that a Chinese company, namely Huawei, is involved in Iran, who is being in a conflict with the US, one of the bold steps that has been taken is asking the Canadian to extradite one of the executive director, namely the daughter of the founder of Huawei, who is now still waiting for a conclusion of a trial in Canada to be extradited to the US. So China is not an exceptionalism. It acts like a big country. Yeah, whatever economic relation is going to see and has been trying to project to each other. Look at Hong Kong. When the security law was implemented, it doesn't affect the stock market. So this is a completely different perspective that I was thinking of. China is acting like a big country. India is also is going to acting like a big country. Unfortunately, I think every country, whether small or big, is facing a situation now that I was thinking implementing the opportunities to beggar thy neighbor because of the pandemic. You unilaterally say there will be no flight from China, there will be no flight from India, there will be no flight from Indonesia, there will be no flight from anywhere. So if we try to push the issues more and more on the differences that we have, either between India or and China, either you're trying to develop the coalition of the willing. It's not only the American who is doing that. India is also doing that. Australia is trying to doing that also. You have the FONOP, you have the all the strategies that thinking of trying to contain China in a such way because you're afraid of China. One thing you need to remember, like this, Kumaja.
Yes.
Indonesia was never being afraid of China. Economically, no. Politically, no. Financially, also no. Okay? Let me give you an example. We never acknowledged any single claim that made by China in South China. See, not a neighbor. Yeah? Even though China keep telling us that they have maritime conflict with Indonesia in the near water of Natuna Island, in the southern tip of South Sea. But every time we try to engage China and ask whether we're going to, can you tell us where is exactly your claim is? So if you talk about claiming, yeah, then you should have a coordinate. Which coordinate you have? Like the border. Like India and China makes the line on another line of action, actual control. Yeah. So I think on another example, I just got information that Indonesia is going to disband the cooperation between China and Indonesia on the high-speed railways, Jakarta-Bandung. Remember that?
Yeah.
That is a $6.2 billion. Yeah, and we never. Oh, it's okay. China cannot promise to deliver the project. But one thing we need to remember is when Xi Jinping was saying that the new China is willing to have a win-win cooperation, then my question will, okay, if China have a project, let's say, highways from their borders down to Gwadar in Pakistan, building roads, is India a contractor company could involved in that? In the OBO mechanism, in the BRICS mechanism? No. That is the problem with China. They always keep saying, okay, I win first. You win, let's negotiate. It's simple like that. So every time, it's very difficult to deal with China. It's very difficult to understand the logic, the thinking of the leaders. But I think on the whole side, we need to understand also our kind of situation now, the global situation now, is because of the leaders. Lucky India have Prime Minister Modi. Can you imagine India have a leader like Donald Trump? The US and China need each other, but they don't need Donald Trump, I think.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Rene. It was great answer. Now going forward, we have also one question coming from this very important question, and question is asked to Mr. Swamijit Ray, Dr. Swamijit Ray. The question is, if I am not mistaken, he interprets Tibet remain under the control of Ming to King and to ROC. If he thinks in this, then what are the evidences that he thinks so? Dr. Swamijit Ray. Dr. Swamijit Ray, are you online? Yes. So could you switch on your mic, please?
Yeah, Professor. I actually did not talk about the Ming. I actually talked about the Qing. And Tibet, whatever independence it had, it lost its independence during the Qing consolidation in the 17th century. And that is why the resident commissioners, the proof is that the presence of resident commissioners in Lhasa, military advisors in Lhasa, Tibet was left as autonomous internally. But as far as its external relations were concerned, they were taken over by the Qing dynasty. That actually helped because the Dalai Lama and the religious establishment, the church, if I may use the term, not exactly the Christian church, but the Buddhist church there, were favorably disposed towards the Qing because the Qing were also yellow-hat Buddhists. So that helped, and that was the situation during the Qing consolidation. I do not talk about the Ming. During the Ming, the Tibet was independent. But for all practical purposes, Tibet became a Qing protectorate during from the mid-17th century onwards. The Great Confusion, I did not talk about the ROC. During the Republic of China period, that was the time, 1912 to 1949, those 37 years. Those 37 years were years of chaos, confusion, uncertainty. And during those years, Tibet got an opportunity to reassert its independence. So that happened during those 37 years. And again, that independence went after the coming of Mao, after the communist emergence of China in 1949. So that is how the history unfolded. It was during the Qing era that Tibet actually lost its independence. It was internally autonomous, listen very carefully, internally autonomous. But then it became a protectorate of the Qing empire. But it got an opportunity to assert its independence during the years of confusion, the 37 years of the Republic of China, because the government that Nanking, the government of warlords that were there in those 37 years, that government which I talked about during my presentation, that government neither had an all-China presence, nor did it have an all-China authority. So during those years of confusion, those years of chaos and uncertainty, Tibet got an opportunity to reassert its independence. That was my point. And that independence was again taken away by Mao. Fine. Having said that, I would like to ask the question, if I may, Dr. Jha, to Professor Chen. Professor Chen, it was such an enormous pleasure listening to you, and I would like to listen to you further. The question I would like to ask you is, that do you think that full diplomatic relations between your country and ours and India, would it be beneficial for the two countries, or would it be an invitation to trouble vis-a-vis the people's rights? Thank you so much, Professor.
Now I request Professor Chen to answer the question raised by Dr. Swamijit Ray.
Could you please repeat the question a little bit? Sorry about that.
Dr. Ray, could you repeat it?
Yeah, Professor, I would like to repeat for you that do you think that the establishment of full diplomatic relations between the Republic of China and the Republic of India would be beneficial to the two countries, or would it be an invitation to trouble from the People's Republic of China? Thank you so much, Professor.
Okay, I think first of all, I have to declare my position. Okay, I myself is not in favor of Republic Republic of China. So don't understand me that I'm on their side. But from my understanding, from my reading, I think both India and China has been very old civilization, and in history they have lived together in peace actually. So I think now in the past China might just ignore India not as a big enough power. That's in the mindset of the Chinese people. But obviously, India is rising too, like Japan. So I think the Chinese people will eventually recognize the importance of collaboration between India and China. So I don't think there will be any serious conflict between India and China just for all the what just happened last week or a few days ago. I think that's just some kind of setback in the progress of collaboration. This is my belief and my understanding.
Thank you, Professor Chen. The question is pertaining to Professor Ajay Dubey. One Siddharth Shankar is asking the questions: how can India unite itself from North, which Professor Ajay Kumar Dubey mentioned, which is agreeing to one China policy while being sympathetic to Tibet? Professor Dubey. Professor Dubey, are you there? I think we are not able to reach to Professor Dubey. Professor Dubey, are you there? So meanwhile, if Professor Dubey is not there, then I ask one more question. It is also pertaining to Professor Dubey only. I think Professor Dubey is there, but somehow we are not able to reach to him. Shall we wait? There are only two questions are left, which is asked to Professor Dubey only. Then there is no more questions. So let me formally start the Thanksgiving ceremony, which is a smaller part. But I apologize that Mr. Pema, Honorable Speaker of Tibetan Exile, could not connect with us because of there is a blackout in Dharamshala since this morning. So I do not know what may be the cause. Since Dharamshala is located in our frontier. I'm sorry for that. The next conference we will again invite him, and because I think what we are planning is this is the so Professor Dubey is there. So let me again repeat questions to Professor. There are two questions pertaining to Professor Dubey. One is just let me repeat it again because questions are scattered. One question is from Siddharth Shankar: how can India unite itself from North, which Professor Ajay Kumar Dubey mentioned, which is agreeing to one China policy while being sympathetic to Tibet? Professor Dubey.
Sorry, could you repeat that? The audio is not clear here.
Yeah, okay. I have two questions for you, sir. One is from Siddharth Shankar, who is saying how can India untie itself from the North? Untie itself from the North, which Professor Kumar Dubey mentioned, which is agreeing to one China policy while being sympathetic to Tibet.
No, I think it is very clear in the sense that I didn't mention that one Tibet issue, but if you understood that one, I can respond to that. The position is this, that China has become our neighbor whether we want or not. since 1949 was never our neighbor. But the fact of international relation is that it has become our neighbor now. So when we deal with China, we understand that the Tibet has been cut of it, but we also understood that Tibet was made part of it forcibly by China. So that dichotomy explains all the time when we deal with China that it was never a part of it, it was forcibly made a part, and at the same time, it's a reality that we have to acknowledge in 21st century.
Thank you, sir. Now, next question is almost same question. So if there is any more questions, I don't think there is any more question. One more question is coming from Sarita Namdar something. My question to Professor Samjit Ray, do we need to think about our immediate neighbors also from a diplomatic point of view for giving strength to China for its act and affecting countries for its expansion? For example, we have incident regarding Kalapani issue in Nepal and Nepal's indirect threat to India. Dr. Samjit Ray.
I have to say that I actually did not understand the question. But what I meant during my presentation is that whenever we are going to deal with a country diplomatically, we must go into its past. We must go into the kind of society it is. We must go into what kind of political system it is. So I laid bare all these, things about the People's Republic of China, its past, its political system, the type of society, the philosophy that governed in the last dynasty, the philosophy and the basis of which it governed such a huge landmass, despite the fact that it was an ethnic minority. The Manchus were an ethnic minority. Despite that, they governed this huge landmass. What kind of philosophy did that? So these are things. I am not talking about the diplomatic point of view. I am saying that when you deal with a country diplomatically, or whether you go to war with a country, war is the end of diplomacy. So when you go to war with a country, or whether you are dealing with a country diplomatically, you must go into the kind of country, the history, the philosophy, the society, the political system, everything that you must know. Otherwise, it is a futile exercise, whether it's a war or whether it's diplomacy. If you don't know how to deal with a country, who to deal with, what to talk, at what level to talk, what are the issues involved, why are those issues involved, what exactly a diplomatic relation, what purpose should it serve. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Ray. The last questions we are taking is from Lipika Roy. She's asking, I asked one question to Shiraj Ji sir on Pakistan's stand over Muslims in China. Advocate Shiraj, are you there online? I think Advocate Shiraj, I think he has left. But I think any one of us can, this is very a common question that what Pakistan thinks or what Pakistan stand over Muslims in China. I think Pakistan makes deep ear to it. Any person from our presenter sides can answer this question, since Advocate Shiraj is not here. Professor Dubey, would you like to answer this question? What Pakistani would think about Muslims in China?
Well, Pakistanis are not concerned about Muslim so long their interest is being served by China itself. They raise the issue of the Muslim because when they want Muslim to be provoked and they want to support that provocation, they have their own Muslims who are Pakistani citizens suffer much more repression in different part of Pakistan, the Balochistan movement. So I don't think Pakistanis are concerned about the Muslim so much as much they are concerned about the very crucial support they get from China, and that overrides their Ummah concern or their concern Muslim.
Right. And Dr. Swamijitra, would you like to comment on this? I think Islam believes in complete submission to Allah, the Almighty God. And Pakistan believes in complete submission to China, not Allah at all. Dr. Swamijitra, would you like to comment?
I would like to support Professor Dubey in whatever he said. Actually, the Muslims in China, they are not a concern for Pakistan. Actually, the Muslims in India also are not a concern for Pakistan. They know that if we take up the issue of Muslims in India, we can create a problem for India. That is the kind of problem that they don't want to create in China. In any case, they are not in a position to create any problem in China. They are at the mercy of China, and they dare not take up any issue regarding Muslim or Islam or how Islam is being punished, or Muslims are being punished, or Islam is being forbidden in China. So that's not their concern. They dare not do anything regarding that. Now, another thing that I would I forgot, is that someone asked Professor Dubey a question regarding Tibet and the One China policy. Actually, that issue was raised by me during my presentation. That is that India had done a blunder under Pandit Nehru, that recognizing the unity of China in the form of the One China policy, yet giving shelter to the Dalai Lama, His Holiness the Dalai Lama. So you have to do either one of them. Either you, if you accept that China is one, if you accept that Tibet is very much part of China, then you don't give shelter to the Dalai Lama. Or if you have given shelter to the Dalai Lama, you must have, given recognition to the Tibetan government in exile. The Indian government must have had the guts to do that on the face of China. So they did not do that. So that was a complication and a blunder that India's diplomatic policy had actually followed. Thank you so much.
Now again, I would like to listen from Mr. Rene that what he thinks about these questions. Pakistan thinking about Muslims in China. Yes.
I think the concern for China is not about Muslim or non-Muslim, but I think what Professor Dubey and Professor Somyadit was saying that our concern is about humanity. Whatever your belief, because what happened in Xinjiang is not because the Uyghur is Muslim, no. But their existence as human has been neglected, nihilized by the Beijing authorities. And I think if we agree on what has been achieved since 1955 after the conference in Bandung of the Asian African Unity, is not about what you believe or whatever you. No, it's about humanity. So there's a very good example. Why do we have to talk about Rohingya? It's not because of the Muslim. No, it's because of their humanity, their rights to live, their rights to believe, their rights to speech. So regarding to this, I think I want to expand more to Professor Somyadit questions regarding on probably Chen also can give me some ideas also regarding to the issue. What Professor Somyadit was thinking about, there won't be any ambiguities, right, regarding relation of One China policies and support to His Holy Highness Dalai Lama in in exile. The question is simple. If you support the Tibetan in exile, I don't like the terminology exile, actually. But if you support the cause of what Dalai Lama has been fighting for and pushing him to go out of Tibet, will India, for example, lease their lands for a certain years, like what the British has been doing in Hong Kong? Let's say, okay, you got a particular area in Dharmasala there for 1990 years, 1999 years, whatever, you can do, establish your own republic, your own system, democratic or not, it just doesn't matter. Yeah. But then what we need is also to understand there are people who was being abandoned, being pushed away because you are much more powerful, because your number is bigger than the minorities, and you can act whatever you like. That was what I'm understanding of what Professor Soumya Adit was thinking and telling about the relation between RLC and India. The RLC is a legitimate rulers, but when they claim the whole China, then you will have an international debate on who has the right and who has not the right. A historical memory setting, it will not go anywhere. Yeah. Come back again in Hong Kong, for example. The law says is the security law is safeguarding their sovereignty. It has nothing to do with China is going to overtake and abolish all the mechanism and the system in Hong Kong. No. The new law will be an annex to the basic law. And I think the basic law will still intact until it was finished after 50 years in 2047. So again, if the issue is about what rights that humanity can live in peace without having too much worried about what China is going to do this and that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Rene. It was a great talk, a great discourse, in fact, since our time doesn't allow more to ask the same questions to the rest of our speakers. So here I would like to announce the end of this entire webinar today and start the Thanksgiving formality, so which is very necessary. So let me begin with Shri Indresh who readily agreed to become a keynote speaker. And next is Professor Yi Hui Chen from Taiwan, National University of Asia University of Taiwan. And he has been very busy, I think, for the last entire month. And then I pursued him, and then finally he got agreed. Thank you, sir. And I hope with your expertise and with your excellence, you will benefit us again in the near future. And then next is Mr. Rene. Mr. Rene, we are really, so thankful to you that you came. And this is the first time that you are speaking with us. I hope you again bless us with your expertise. I think this is the first time I am meeting a great expert on this entire issue from Indonesia. Thank you, sir.
Thank you for the invitation.
And next is Sukma Susanti. Thank you, madam, for easily getting ready. And then Dr. Rahul Mishra. Thank you, sir, because you were my friends in JNU. So I will not thank you more. So and then you said that your two students, Desh Balakrishnan he was excellent, and I hope we can form a group in near future, and we can continue our discourse. And Lichi was excellent. She carried through her rapid action force. It was really great. And then Advocate Shiraj Qureshi ji, who escalated certain issues faced by our Muslim brothers in China, and I think we have included all the speakers. If anyone has been left, I think these are the speakers, and two speakers were not able to. One has been facing blackout in Dharamshala, and another speaker, Dr. Abhishek Tandon, who just said that her little daughter fell sick and he won't be able to come. So again, we are thankful to everyone that we formed a group, and today I was thinking that we will be able to finish by 5:30 or 6:40. It shows that how the entire discourse, entire session was so interactive. And apart from this, the most important aspects, those my students and volunteers who volunteered, and they are part of my integral society, and they work very hard to connect, because to organize a long seminar with Google Meet is very difficult. That in the beginning we faced that many people wanted to share their screens, so they are at the back end. They immediately removed them. So they were quite successful in doing that. So let me, spell their name one by one. First is Abhinav. I think he's not there. Akshat, are you there? Could you raise your hand, Akshat?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, could you raise your hand? Yes, Akshat is there. And other is Barun. Barun, can we see you? Could you applaud for them? Barun. Yeah, Barun is there. David Pradhan. David, are you there? He's in Indonesia, and from there he was handling the thing. David, you are there?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Namaskar.
Yeah, David is there. Can we see you, David?
Sir.
Okay, David is there. Now next is Ratan Raj Brahma.
Yes, sir.
Can we see you, Ratan Raj? Okay, we cannot see him. Now next is Shambhavi. Shambhavi, can we see you?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, Shambhavi is there. And Mohan Kumar. Mohan Kumar, I can listen from him. Mohan Kumar is there. Could you come here? He has been there since morning. And then we have Ankit. Ankit Raj, you are there?
Yes, sir.
Ankit, they are still handling the back end team. Ankit and Prabhu.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So with this work, I'm thanking everyone, and we hope we stay in touch. And hopefully next month we'll have another webinar. And I request you kindly keep your time free for the next webinar. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.